Chapter 26. Blowing Up. Satan was sweating waterfalls and simultaneously shaking in his boots. He was hardly able to sit still. It's horrible. He is that guy with the weird hair. Raditz looked at Satan, who was still making fun of the unconscious mercenary Tao's hairstyle. This was something that almost got him killed a while back, and his master really did die because of this. Satan has some truly big balls to say this again. Be careful, Satan. You know this guy isn't really unconscious. Majority of his head is cybernetic. He can't be knocked out. As if on cue, mercenary Tao's eyes snapped open and he glared at Satan. His act was obviously seen through. Looking towards Satan's family, Tao's desire to end them in front of Satan increased manifolds. This guy is the reason I am in such deep trouble. I should have finished the job back then. Asterisk bam asterisk. Hitting Tao's head with a punch, Raditz made him collapse into a heap of sparking parts. Looking at the shocked mercenary Tao, Raditz frowned. Don't go thinking wild things about this family. They work for me. Do you understand, mercenary? Asterisk bzzt asterisk. Nodding his head with a sparking neck, Tao bent his head and hid his angry face. He was a martial artist. He will not be humiliated like this. He was so pissed off, right now he could blow himself up. He should still have that module installed. Raditz meanwhile was wondering what to do with this guy. He wanted to give him to Satan, so Satan can end his enmity with him. But looking at Satan, he doesn't seem to want to do anything at all. He in fact wants to run away quickly. Shame really. I would have helped my manager out. Shaking his head, Raditz removed the disappointment bubbling up within him. He can't expect everyone to have the courage of a Saiyan. All right, I'll get rid of. Die. Goku. Tao Pai Pai had enough. He was done. He wasn't about to fall into the hands of another Goku. This time around, he would take him down with him. He was mercenary Tao, an assassin with his own twisted pride. He will always have the last word, no matter the means. Asterisk boom asterisk. A massive blast shook the Satan manor. Fire poured out of the windows and doors were blasted open. Asterisk wish asterisk. A large flame lit the garden surrounding Satan Manor. The self-destruction of a martial arts master with a power level of 210 was immense. The situation was grim, but if anyone was to really look into it, they would find something weird. The Satan Manor was still standing, with no damage in sight, except the burning garden outside. Asterisk cough asterisk. Ahem, like I was saying, I'll get rid of his remains. You guys handle the cleaning. All of the Satan family and Scale looked at Raditz with terrified and confused expressions. Well, except Launch, who seemed oblivious to anything but Raditz's tale. Boss, we could have died. You saved us, boss. How did you do it? There isn't a burn mark around? Videl, who was held in her mother's hands out of fear, also exclaimed with stars in her eyes. Yeah, Uncle Raditz. I saw a lot of fire rushing towards me, but then it wasn't hot. You were so cool. Raditz humped at that. Looking at Cyborg Tao doing his best Yamcha impression, he spat. I could sense at the moment this guy initiated self-destruct. His power spike was pretty large, so I covered this entire place in psychic barrier. Nothing this week can penetrate Raditz's barrier, unless it's a concentrated attack like special beam cannon. If Tao went for his super Dodone ray using all his energy behind the attack, Raditz might need to dodge, but nothing else would work on him. This is horrible. Is he dead? The trembling Satan asked with a scared expression. Raditz meanwhile pondered on this while looking at the corpse of mercenary Tao. He was too hasty. I would have let him go with a warning if he behaved himself, but it seems his hatred for brother was a bit too much. While Raditz didn't have any desire to kill him, he wasn't about to wish Tao back with the Dragonballs or something either. Shrugging his shoulders, Raditz decided to pick up the smoldering Tao on his shoulder. While this guy is pretty evil, his skills are worthy of praise. Wasn't he half cyborg? Let's make a full cyborg out of him. Bulma should get enough inspiration from Android 8's design. Deciding to create an Android 16 of his own, Raditz put another tick on his list, but that was for later. He had more important things right now. Looking towards Launch, who was still in a world of her own, Raditz twitched his lips. Launch, right? I saw your photo in Master Roshi's magazine. His photo frame? You said you were lost? Looking up at Raditz, Launch clapped her hands and gave a big smile. Yes. Can you take me back? That would be lovely. Hearing her talk, Scale wasn't able to connect this ditzy woman with the insane blonde who was gunning down the mercenary. How did she live until now with an attitude like this? Scale couldn't figure this out for the life of him, so he stopped caring about it altogether. He had his own problems to worry about, like healing this hole in his neck and getting his pay from Raditz. He did after all find Tao. Yes, Satan, pay Scale for his work, and Scale, leave your phone number. I'll contact you when I want something done. Giving a smile after his pay was set, Scale saluted Raditz and spoke with vigor. Yes, boss, I am always ready. Just let me handle everything. All you have to do is ask. Good. I'll remember that. We should get going too. Coiling his tail around Launch, Raditz held onto her shoulder for additional support. After putting Tao Pai Pai on the opposite shoulder, he blasted off. Asterisk whoosh asterisk. Looking at Raditz flying away, Miguel finally brought her attention back to the manor. Honey, we should call someone. Our garden is on fire. Oh no. I'll call right away. Satan ran to call the firefighters, and Miguel took Videl to her room. Scale just kind of sat there, wondering if these people were going to forget his pay after all. Chapter 27. Launch. Raditz was once again flying through the night sky, but this time with Launch in tow. He was using a key barrier to make sure she doesn't transform on him, resulting in him dropping her or something. That was a thing he would rather avoid. Looking at Launch smilingly widely and gazing at the scenery down below, Raditz sped up. We are almost there. Hang on tight. Asterisk whoosh asterisk. Grabbing onto Raditz tighter, Launch's eyes darted towards his face, giving another happy smile. Launch closed her eyes and hung onto him. She was finally retuning home. She was tired of roaming the world again. It's great that I found you, thought Launch. She might seem ditzy to everyone, but even she knew something tended to happen when she sneezed, something that kept people away from her. So Launch was really happy that Raditz didn't avoid her, just like her friends back at Kame House always kept her around no matter how many times she sneezed. This was why she always called that place her home, and why she wanted to return. Asterisk wo asterisk. A slight jerking motion made Launch open her eyes, and the sight before her had her bubble with happiness. Kame House. I finally found it. Raditz smiled as well, landing on the ground. His plan was to spend the night at Satan's, but he had to bring Launch back. At least I have added the transformation to Satan. As long as Satan wills it, he will change into me. I don't need to hurry. Turning towards Launch, who was looking at Kame House in a daze, Raditz nudged her along. Let's go. It's nighttime. I think even you need to sleep, don't you? Looking at Raditz, Launch chuckled and closed her hands together. That would be lovely. I'll show you the room. Question marks were forming on Raditz's forehead. She was the one who returned. Why is she acting like she is the hostess? And on top of that, Raditz told her to sleep. Not that he wanted to do so. Well, I suppose I gotta spend the night somewhere, be it Kame House. Shrugging, Raditz came along without a care. He could sense Rashi was asleep right now, so he didn't go to greet the master. Rashi would know they were here as soon as he wakes up, but Launch seemed to not know that. Oh no, Master Rashi is asleep. What do I do? Launch thought aloud, turning towards the guest room of the hut, which was Krillin's old room. Launch patted her hands together and pulled Raditz along. Looking at Launch trying to pull his hands, Raditz started walking too, or she would keep trying to pull him like an immovable object. Walking into the room, Launch turned on the lights. Oh my, it's so dirty. Launch exclaimed, looking at the perfectly okay room, at least to Raditz's eyes. My previous life's room was worse than this, and Raditz himself slept on dirt. But who was he to tell a housework expert what was dirty and what was not? Somehow pulling out a duster from a corner, Launch tied her hair back with a ribbon. I'll clean up here. It's too dirty. You don't have to wait for me. I'll be done in a jiffy. Nodding his head, Raditz relaxed and went to bed. Climbing on top of it, he pulled on the covers and looked at Launch. Can you turn off the lights after you are done? Seriously nodding while dusting a table, Launch gave a smile. Yes. Now sleep, shoo shoo. Smiling because of seeing the ditzy Launch get serious for once, Raditz closed his eyes and slept off. Launch, seeing that, slowed down her movements to not wake Raditz up, and it worked. Raditz slept soundly. Right until now. Huh, what? Feeling a nudge, Raditz woke up in a daze and looked around the dark room, his eyes adjusting to the lack of light quickly. Turning towards the thing that disturbed him, he saw his covers bulging and a head full of dark blue hair sticking out. Seriously? After being stunned for a second, Raditz patted his forehead. While situations like these were common back at Planet Vegeta, this wasn't Vegeta. But Raditz's main issue was not that, it was something his brother had already experienced before. Launch while sleeping can also transform. Being the crazy killer she was, she ended up attacking Goku that one time, which resulted in her getting one shot by him instantly. But walking up with a gun to my head is not a good morning alarm, so this won't do at all. Launch. Calling her name, Raditz woke Launch up, who was not so much asleep as she trying to sleep. Whew. What is it? Looking at her silly look, Raditz shook his head. Looking at her funny, he asked, Why did you climb into my bed? Tilting her head, Launch said as if obvious. We only have 2 rooms. Master Rashi is in the other one. Did I disturb you? Sorry. Looking at her, Raditz gave up looking for an answer. He wasn't about to get a better one. It's fine. Just remember to tie your hair. We don't want you sneezing. Okay. Launch tied her hair with her ribbon and Raditz went back to sleep. But Launch was now wide awake. So after just a little while, she turned towards Raditz. Twiddling her fingers, she whispered, Are you awake? Yes. And so Launch, scooting closer, kickstarted Raditz's sleepless night. He learned something that night. Launch had way too much energy. She could go on and on and on. From where she got all that energy to keep talking was beyond Raditz. Chapter 28, Baba. So you were telling me nothing happened? You didn't. You know? Rashi asked with a weird look on his face. When he had sensed Launch and Raditz in his room this morning, he didn't think he would find them like that. What do you mean? Seeing Raditz giving the exact same lost expression that Goku gave when Rashi asked where Gohan came from, Rashi gave up directly. You are Goku's brother all right, but Launch, why are you blushing? Involuntarily raising his voice at the latter part, Rashi asked with a fiery desire to know, for research purposes. To the sudden question thrown her way, Launch exclaimed with surprise, then covering her face she ran, throwing an excuse to Rashi. I'll bring you breakfast. Looking at the running Launch and chilled-out Raditz, Rashi frowned. A total mystery, but Rashi was a master after all. A master of many arts, not only fighting. Raditz, come here for a second. Flinching back slightly, Raditz regained his balance. He knew what Rashi wanted to ask. No way, Master Rashi. I am starving. I will go see what Launch is cooking, see ya. Narrowing his eyes, Rashi looked at Raditz go into the kitchen and vanish behind Launch. Sighing after his plan failing, he took out a cassette tape from his collection. Looks like it's only you and me again. Ignoring the weird laughing noises coming from the room behind him, Raditz sat on the kitchen counter and looked at Launch cooking. Why did you come, Raditz? I can do it myself? The still embarrassed Launch attempted to shoo Raditz away, who wasn't ready to move. No way, I want to watch. You want to watch me? Okay. Gulping down the rest of his sentence, where he was about to say he wanted to watch the food getting cooked, Raditz stayed silent. He and Launch got to know a lot about each other last night, and that included the existence of blonde Launch, and some more stuff that Raditz assumed was the cause of Launch's embarrassment. Are you leaving after this? Launch muttered, barely making a sound. After yesterday night, she didn't want to separate from Raditz so soon. Even after she sneezed and blacked out, she was sitting normally after regaining her senses. It was like she hadn't sneezed at all. This has never happened to her before. Even with her friends here, after she sneezed there were many weird things she didn't understand, like broken buildings, scattered things, but not with Raditz. I am sticking around. I train with Master Rashi here. Launch smiled involuntarily. If Raditz was here she would feel safe and warm. It would be just like yesterday. I see. With that both felt silent, Raditz busy looking at the sizzling meat on the stove, and Launch busy taking peeks at Raditz and smiling. Launch was glad to have met Raditz, in more than one ways. Time passed quickly for Launch, and after everyone finished eating, it was time for Raditz and Rashi to train. Just when they were about to get up after, Raditz called out to Rashi. Master, I need a favor. Asked Raditz with his hands folded. Launch stopped picking up the dishes and Rashi stopped preparing himself for a fight. Huh? What is it? Asked Rashi, intrigued at what Raditz wanted to ask. It must be something important if Raditz calls it a favor, and Rashi wasn't disappointed. Master, can you arrange a meeting with your sister? I have to ask her something. Eh? Rashi exclaimed. He had many things he thought Raditz could ask, but setting up a meeting with his sister wasn't one of them. You want to meet her? Well, I suppose I can arrange that. But what is it you need of her? Launch was also curious. She didn't know Master Rashi had a sister, but weirdly enough, Raditz turned to look at her after this. Fortune teller Baba is the best magic user I know. I think Launch's condition has something to do with magic. I could sense quite a few intriguing things yesterday. Her changing the way she does, manifesting guns and ammunition. Launch has latent magic ability. I am sure of it. Raising his sunglasses and eyebrows together, Rashi looked at Launch intently, and Launch herself was covering her mouth while looking at Raditz. Thank you. Very uncharacteristically, Launch launched herself across the room to give Raditz a hug. While she didn't get what he said about her changing in this gun thing, she knew he was doing this all to help her. What more could she ask for? It was the happiest day of her life. Alright, I'll call her. I didn't think Launch was using magic all this time. Rashi's words had Raditz nod, but he knew this was very much possible. Earth was very diverse. Boss Rabbit existed on Earth. He had Majin Buu-like magic abilities too, but instead of turning people into candy, he turned them into carrots. Rashi's sister herself was connected to the other world and had all kinds of weird people amongst her ranks, invisible man, vampire, and so much more. Launch clearly wasn't an alien and showed manifesting abilities. This being magic made the most sense, even if it was not. Taking a look won't hurt. Okay, I'll call her in the evening. She gets grumpy otherwise, but she might not answer and you might have to make a trip yourself. Nodding lightly at Rashi's words, Raditz agreed, but he wasn't about to make a trip if not absolutely necessary. Baba had some weird tournament rules. Raditz didn't want to waste too much time fighting long-dead guys. Who knows, she might even pull Bardock and Jine out to fight him. She after all totally pulled out Grandpa Gohan against Goku, and was 100% capable of pulling Super Saiyan 3 Goku out of the other world. Chapter 29. Ocean dive. Asterisk bang asterisk. Asterisk bang asterisk. Asterisk bang asterisk. Stop, that's enough for now, Raditz. Rashi stopped the spar with Raditz. They were going on for about an hour now, and Raditz was learning remarkably fast. Asterisk huff asterisk. Releasing a breath, Raditz rubbed his shoulders, the parts where he was hit the most. Training in Ultra Instinct was very hard. Even if he had everything down pat, it was difficult, but at least his power level was increasing pretty fast. Master, I can go on. Regaining his energy back with a little bit of rest, Raditz radiated strength again. But Rashi shook his head and denied Raditz's request. Don't be hasty. We are training your instincts. You can't rush it. Too much training, and your body will get confused. Taking on his master pose, Rashi lectured Raditz with seriousness. The only thing more sparring will do now is make you develop bad habits. Scratching his long mane, Raditz shrugged helplessly. But without that, my power level won't increase faster. While I am getting stronger day by day naturally, I would have liked to speed up the progress just a bit more. Again shaking his head, Rashi gave his advice while walking towards his beach chair. But power without control is nothing. Your naturally increasing energy levels are in perfect control right now. Well, I suppose it'll be fine. Sitting down on his chair, Rashi finally decided to allow Raditz more training. Personally, he wanted his pupil to grow in a balanced way. But he could see the need for power in Raditz's eyes. It wasn't too noticeable, but it was there. Rashi assumed it was due to him needing to face his previous partners. More fighting won't do you any good. You can't get much exercise delivering milk either. Let's see. I suppose swimming will have to do. Twitching his eyes at Rashi's training regimen, the exact same all of his pupils went through, Raditz wondered how Master will make this work for him. He can't exactly get training done while a shark is chasing him. The shark can't even scratch him even if he sat there and let it attack. All right, you go and start swimming. Keep doing it until you run out of breath. Opening his eyes a little wider, something clicked inside Raditz. He understood what Rashi was telling him to do. You don't mean I need to swim in there? Pointing towards the vast ocean around the island, Raditz asked again. There, deep inside the ocean? Nodding his head with his sunglasses reflecting light, Rashi took out his magazine. Of course, the pressure should be plenty for you, and the lack of air will force you just fine. Now go, hang in there. Raditz smiled and let out chuckle. Rashi found a good substitute indeed. Instead of the usual sharks, it was Raditz's own lack of oxygen. Instead of tiring muscles, it was his body losing strength when holding his breath for a long time. And lastly, the need to concentrate all his energy, everything to stay alive in the deep waters when he starts running out of air. I guess that's gonna be a rough one. I hope I don't drown. While this training did seem dangerous enough, Raditz wasn't about to go in headfirst without testing how to get out in case of an emergency. He wanted to do a test run before that, like normal people should do. Raditz would rather not scream, danger and opportunities coexist, let's gamble, and run forward like an utter fool. He didn't have the thick plot armor he needed to survive that. Okay then, launch, Master Rashi, I will be off. Asterisk whoosh asterisk. Taking off in a jiffy, Raditz flew through the air while practicing holding his breath. He never tried to in this body until now. He really didn't have an idea how capable of such a feat was his Saiyan body. Wait, does Zanaki boost apply to this? If I hold my breath until I am near death, will I get a boost? Then can't I just sit and hold my breath until I am the strongest? Nah, that can't be right. That sounded too busted to be possible. It's probably only applicable to actual wounds and stuff, but Raditz will give it a try anyway. What if it works? What Broly? What Barris? What Grand Priest? Everyone step aside. Let me hold my breath. Asterisk huff asterisk. Alright, that's enough daydreaming. My time limit is 3 minutes, pretty good for a first try. Breathing in some air again, Raditz calculated his rough time limit. It was good enough for him right now. But he knew he could do better. Even regular humans back at his original universe had people who could hold their breath for 20+ minutes. Best of all, I am a Saiyan. Getting used to incredibly tough conditions is in my blood. Paragus and Broly didn't survive Vampa by chance. It's their nature as a Saiyan that made it possible. Currently hovering over the ocean, Raditz was but a dot in the sky for the observing Master Rashi and launch. And this could be seen descending down feet first, slowly reaching the water surface. Looking down, Raditz took a deep breath and dived in. It's cold. Good thing I have my armor on. His armor was plenty lightweight and insulating, so feeling comfortable in it, Raditz swam deeper. Settling in the deep part of the ocean, Raditz found this to be a good test spot. He would try and see how long he can last, check his limits, then blast off to the surface. Now all he needed was to calm down and let nature take its course. Closing his eyes, Raditz relaxed. His hands hung down and his hair floated up, and just like that, time started passing, bit by bit. Asterisk tick asterisk. Asterisk tick asterisk. Asterisk tick asterisk. Every passing minute could be felt in the depths, but Raditz could hear nothing. Only the sound of gurgling water was ringing against his eardrums. In this ocean he was all alone, with only the sound of water to accompany him. His lungs wanted to breathe again, But he wanted to know what was down there. No matter how Raditz tried, he couldn't see the bottom. His sight was gradually obscured with no indication of what was below him. It was a dark, deep abyss. And if there is one thing that was true in any reality, it was when you stare at the abyss stares back. Blink. Two eyes looked at Raditz's floating body. Where light didn't exist, there existed a humanoid, quietly gazing at Raditz's gradually slack form. Its flipping fishtail was a clear indication that while the creature wanted to observe a bit more before making its move, it was almost ready to act. Fun fact, this creature is a canon character, a bit obscure but canon nonetheless. Chapter 30, Training Partner. Pai seems to be fondly remembered, much more than I had originally anticipated. Who knew a character that appeared for around one panel would leave such a deep impression? I wonder what the reason might be. Must be her ability to ride the Nimbus. Not many can do that. Anyway, good work folks. Trivia time's over. Now onto the story. Raditz had closed off all his senses and was simply floating in the deep ocean. No key sense, no wandering mind, only pure stillness. So when he abruptly felt a pair of eyes staring at him closely, his eyes snapped open. Fuck. Glug. Raditz swiftly closed his mouth with his face turning blue and ran for the surface, leaving the owner of the curious eyes startled. Watching the man that should be drowning leave for the surface swiftly, the creature hesitated a bit, then followed behind. Blurb. Splash. Cough. Shit, I almost drowned. That got me. Coughing violently to remove the water that had started filling his lungs, Raditz somehow floated above the surface in a sitting posture. As he was trying to get his breath back, the water before him started bubbling and attracted Raditz's attention. Splash. With a bit of water splashing on him, a head full of purple hair emerged from the water, its owner being a human girl. Well, almost human. The barely visible fishtail flipping under her broke the immersion immediately. And Raditz meanwhile was pissed off. He almost drowned because she sneaked up on him quietly. What the hell? I could have died, you know. A reminder would have been great. I thought you were drowning. I wanted to help. Sorry. The startled mermaid gave an apologetic smile to Raditz, who by now had noticed her red shirt, more specifically what was written on it.
Pie.
She's the mermaid Goku found back then. Did she settle in these waters, or was she always here? Goku just asked her to follow him? Understanding who he was talking to got Raditz to relax a bit. Pai was one of the very few who could ride the flying Nimbus. A pure of heart gentle creature, for reference, Bulma can't ride the flying Nimbus, no matter how much she insists it's the Nimbus who's at fault. Fine, name's Raditz. I am Pai. I am sorry for before. Again apologizing, Pai showed her pure Goku-like nature completely, even though Raditz let it go. She herself felt bad. Hearing her name, Raditz nodded curiously. Ooh, Pai. As in the food? Pai. I see. I'll remember you. Pai sweat dropped and gave an embarrassed smile. While this was a weird way to remember someone's name, this wasn't the first time she had encountered this. A kid with a fluffy brown tail had said the same to her a few years ago. Wait. We have met before. I remember you. We visited that island together. Do you still have that cloud? I would love to sit on it again. Pai spoke a lot after she remembered where she had seen him before, his tail being a dead giveaway for her. But this caused Raditz to tilt his head. Huh? You can't know me. I just arrived here. Maybe it's my brother that you saw. This had Pai visibly confused for a bit, then she somehow agreed, though she still felt that not many with such fluffy brown tail exist. Oh, do you have your brother's cloud then? Can you take me for a ride like before? Raditz was at a loss. While he wouldn't have minded taking her for a ride, he didn't know where the Nimbus was at. And even if he got one of his own, he wasn't sure he could qualify its heart purity test. Well, he might be able to cheat using nature key. I am not sure where brother kept it. I can't ask him either as he is dead, you see. He was killed by him. Opening her eyes wide, Pai looked visibly startled and saddened. That's awful. I am sorry. Waving his hands, Raditz said without much care. It's fine. I will pull his soul out of Otherworld soon enough. Don't worry about it. Pai looked a bit ashamed at reminding Raditz of such a bad news, and she felt worse at Raditz's comforting words. How can someone revive the dead? He was just trying to look onto false hope. She can't let him live in delusions like this. Swimming up to Raditz, Pai held his hands in her own and said with seriousness, It's okay, your brother is gone. Whoever killed your brother is an awful person. But we must look forward. Dead can't come back, Raditz. Barely maintaining a shaky smile, Raditz looked at her a bit weirdly. He wasn't that awful. As for Dragonball revival, she didn't know that was pretty normal. She was barely a member of the main cast that hung around Kame House. Meanwhile, Pai found Raditz seemed okay enough and smiled happily. Letting his hands go, she circled around him like an enthusiastic fish. How are you sitting on water? Looking down at the rippling water, Raditz said in a matter-of-fact way, "Oh this? I am not sitting, I am flying." Asterisk woo asterisk. Asterisk splash asterisk. Pushing himself a bit more distance from the surface, Raditz floated above the water, making Pai Pai open her eyes with wonder. "That's amazing. You can fly. Take me. Take me as well, please." Giving her hands forward, Pai Pai looked like she just found a mountain of gold, and Raditz by now realized she had a substantial desire to fly. She was stuck in water all her life after all. Land and air was something she longed to see. But while Raditz didn't mind taking her for a ride, he was in the middle of training. "Well, I would, but I am in the middle of my training, you see." Putting her hands down with disappointment, Pai Pai asked Raditz, "What training?" Pointing towards the deep sea, Raditz told what he wanted to do. "I am going to practice swimming in the deep water. It's a kind of strength training. It would have worked best with a shark for me to chase, but alas, I gotta make do with holding my breath for now." Hearing that, Pai Pai brought her purple hair behind the ears. She then said with a mischievous look in her eyes, "I can be your shark. I am very fast underwater. I have lived here all my life. But in exchange, how about you take me to fly afterwards?" Seeing Pai Pai looking at him like she found a solution to all their problems, Raditz smiled as well. "I suppose, as long as I don't use my ki, I should be able to get all the exercise I need. Fine, Pai Pai, from now on you are my shark." "Okay, you shall be my cloud." After a moment of silence, Raditz laughed boisterously and agreed to be a Nimbus substitute for Pai Pai. "All right, I think I have rested enough. Now back to training, are you ready?" Nodding her head, Pai Pai swiftly put her head in the sea and swam away. Her speed was indeed fast. "She's fast. I expect nothing less from a mermaid. This is a way better workout plan than the original." Asterisk splash asterisk. Diving in himself, Raditz followed behind Pai Pai. Using just his muscle power, he swam. And so began a chase down at the ocean floor, a chase full of laughter, making Raditz realize this abyss wasn't so bad after all. Chapter 31. Case of the Missing Soul. It was night by the time Raditz left the ocean and returned back to Kame House. Did he forget to tell Rashi and Launch he would be this late? Yes. Did he also forget that he had an outing planned with Bulma this evening? Again, yes. But Raditz couldn't really remember it with all the fun he was having training in the deep ocean with Pai Pai. She was a great company in more than one way. "My clothes are messed up and she scratched my back on top of that. She was way too into this." Fixing his pants and his out-of-place armor, Raditz slowly made his way to Kame House. He didn't blame Pai Pai either. It was her first time. After all, she didn't really train with anyone before Raditz. Getting a bit overexcited was normal. She was just a lonely mermaid after all. "I am back." Hurried steps rang inside the house, and the door nearly flew off its hinges. Launch came out with a flustered expression which relaxed after seeing Raditz safe and sound. "You are back. What took you so long?" asked Launch while attempting to fix Raditz's messed up and wet armor, something Raditz didn't mind either. Shrugging, he remembered how he spent his day today. "I was training and learning a bit about mermaid biology, I guess." Looking at the confused Launch, Raditz brought his hands up in a claw shape. "They have sharp nails. It dug into even my Saiyan skin. A mean evolutionary advantage." While Launch was a bit confused how Raditz went ahead and got himself scratched up by a mermaid, she wasn't going to ask right now, because she had much more pressing matters to attend to. That was the entire reason she was tidying up Raditz right outside the door. "Is he here? Bring him in." That old voice was the thing she was preparing Raditz for. He cannot go and meet her looking like he just left the bed. "Is that? Baba is here?" whispered Raditz, and Launch nodded quickly, doing her best to make Raditz look more presentable. She opened the door and pulled Raditz in. "Oh, you must be Baba. What's with the look in your eyes?" Frowning for a second after noticing the weird looks Baba was giving him, Raditz went ahead and sat himself before her, right besides Rashi, who was keeping Baba company all this time. Not speaking a word of her own, Baba floated on top of her crystal ball and began spinning around Raditz ever so slowly. She wanted to take a close look at him before speaking her mind. "Sue, is this some magic? Or are taking measurements to gift me clothes?" Sarcastically asking Baba got her to stop her gawking and humph back to her position, but her curiosity got her to ask what was bugging her. "How did you do it?" Folding his hands, Raditz raised his eyebrows. He was currently in a bit of a pickle as he couldn't get a mind read on Baba, so he didn't know what she actually found wrong about him. "How did I do what? I am just sitting here." Slapping her forehead, Baba grumbled about meatheads and Goku's brother before telling him herself what's the problem. "You bouffon, you shouldn't even be alive right now. When I searched for this Raditz who wanted to meet me, I found out that he is in hell, but brother said Raditz is with him." Pointing towards Rashi, Baba yelled angrily, then huffed, seeing Raditz's unfazed look. But internally he was spitting. "Crap, crap, 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 crap." But the unfazed and frankly meathead-looking Raditz showed he had no idea what she was talking about. Angrily rushing up to Raditz, Baba pointed her finger at him and denounced him. You. Take this seriously. You have such a weird case, I had to go to King Yima to look into this up for you. Oh hell no. Trying his hardest to look uninterested, Raditz waved her off and said in a classic Saiyan tone. So what? I had almost died a while back. Maybe your system's busted or something. Hitting Raditz on top of his head, which Raditz didn't even feel, Baba said with a pissed-off look. Otherworld is perfect, it has no flaw, you bouffon. It's you who is the problem. There have been only 3 cases like you till date. Letting out a breath, Baba calmed herself down, backed away. Then she told what she found out from King Yima. King Yima searched long and hard. He even pulled out his million-year-old records. Only then we could pinpoint what's your deal. Launch, even though timid, got a word in this time. He is okay, right? You aren't going to take him away? Scoffing at Launch's words, Baba waved her hand. Your man is safe, little girl. I was only curious, that's why I searched so much. The blushing Launch kept her head down after that, and just kept listening. And you look interested for once. Listen carefully, you have already died. But now that you are somehow alive, only 2 possibilities exist. Taking out a sheet she borrowed from King Yima, Baba read the information before the trio. The first one is you are a different soul that took over Raditz's dead body. Are they going to classify me as the race Jinyu is from? Or maybe blame the Dragonballs? Wondered Raditz as he gave confused look to Baba. If he accepted right away without further information, he would only be digging his own grave. And Baba didn't suspect a thing either, she continued. But that's clearly not the case, because we found no record of your past in the books. Every creature has its own record since its birth, but you have none. A soul transfer doesn't change that. Well, of course I don't. I wasn't born here in the first place. How would they even have my record? Thought Raditz, relaxing internally after understanding he wasn't considered a body thief yet. Baba, ignoring everything, continued after flipping to the next page. Then there is the second option. If a soul doesn't have any information at all, that means it's a new soul. Only newborn creatures have that, but you clearly aren't a baby. Waving her hand around, she looked at him with a pissed-off look again. See how much trouble I had to go through. Yima finally found what exactly happened. It was a case of lowest probability. Giving Raditz a somewhat proud look which she hid almost immediately, Baba said with a less harsh tone. Your original soul had long since left and went to hell, but your body held on. Your will before dying was so immense that even after death your body wanted to wake up again. This immense will and your body's natural instinct actually managed to give birth to a new soul. Boy, only 2 other men had a will so strong that it left its effect even after death. Resisting the urge to twitch his lips, Raditz breathed a sigh of relief. His was actually a straight case of body takeover, but they went an entirely different route because they had no record on him. A will strong enough to persist after death? Please, original Raditz was good, but not that good. What's with that look? You think I want to praise you? That will was just a one-time thing. You don't even look as strong as your dad. Baba angrily rushed to him and pointed at his armored chest. She assumed Raditz's silent look and twitching lips were mocking her. Rashi found this a good place to step in and tried to pacify his sister. He isn't mocking you. He is trying to understand what all this means. Nodding his head at Rashi's save, Raditz silently gave him a thumbs up from behind, something which Rashi replied to with one of his own. Baba humped seeing them both and let it go. They simply weren't as smart as she was. Don't think too much. You are not someone else. You are also Raditz, but you have no karma. You are starting from zero. Just think of this as a new beginning and fulfill what you wanted to do so much before dying. Giving a smile to Baba, Raditz finally bowed and showed his respect. Thank you, Baba. Humph, you know some manners after all. Hiding her smile, Baba moved her face the other way and arrogantly went to occupy Rashi's room. I am tired. We will talk again tomorrow. Rashi looked at his room being taken over and then turned to look at Raditz and Launch, who immediately shook their heads and simultaneously ran towards the room they had captured before. Sigh. Looks like it's only me and you again. Bringing a tape out of his pocket, Rashi went ahead and began his nightlife. He was really beginning to miss his youth. It might be time to look for another immortal phoenix. The previous one died before Rashi could get it to spit out its secrets. He will bring it up with her sister tomorrow, right after Raditz finishes asking help himself. Baba always knew where to find things because of that pesky fortune-telling ability. Chapter 32, Baba's Apprentice. The next morning, all 3 members of Kame House gathered again, all because of Baba yelling at them for being lazy bums. Tapping his finger against his thigh, Raditz waited patiently for Baba to finish her ritual and get on with her thing already. Oh yes, I am done. You may now speak. Clicking his tongue, Raditz wondered why she didn't just finish her rituals before waking them up abruptly. Launch still wasn't rested and was clearly uncomfortable sitting in a place right now, but Baba seemed to not care. Deciding to get this over with, Raditz folded his hands and asked Baba a favor. I wanted to talk to you about Launch. She has a bit of trouble maintaining her senses after she sneezes. Her hair takes on this golden hue. All that she seems to want is to shoot everyone, and she can create guns out of thin air. Acknowledging Raditz's words, Baba began spinning around Launch, who was now sitting straight in an attention posture. She was a little afraid, but a look at Raditz sitting beside her washed her with relief. She would be fine. Yes, it is magic. This girl went ahead and created a whole new state so she can fight back. Asterisk bomb. Asterisk. Hitting Launch on the head, Baba glared at the now pitiful-looking Launch. You are an idiot. You are lucky you are still you. If another consciousness was born, you would be stuck in your own body until the day you died. The clearly scared Launch stumbled away from Baba and threw herself at Raditz, who caught her and gave her the support she wanted to get. Stop scaring her. Just let us know what we should do. Snorting harshly, Baba gave in. She didn't want this harmless girl to suffer any longer either. She has to come with me. I am very busy. I will teach her, and the next time you see her she will have this sorted out. That was a bit of a problem for Launch, who looked up from her hiding place and said with concern, "But if I go away, who will take care of them? I can't leave Raditz and Master Rashi alone." Quickly taking Launch out of Baba's smack's way, Raditz frowned at Baba, who seems to get the message that he would be more than happy to spar if she kept throwing hands. While she was clearly pissed at this and wanted to call Bardock and Jine right away to teach this guy a lesson, she decided against it. I am doing this for her own good. This excessive harmless nature is what prompted her to create a fighting state, so she doesn't feel the guilt of her actions. Whatever, no matter. Little girl, if you want to get better, come with me. I'm only asking twice you because you remind me of myself back then. Before Launch could try and negotiate again, Raditz stepped in. He knew this might really be the last chance Baba was giving Launch. Launch, you should go. We will handle here. While it won't be nearly as good as you can do, I think we can take it as long as you are okay. Rubbing his beard, Rashi also stepped in to convince Launch, lest his sister takes this personally. Listen to Raditz, Launch. Sister hasn't taken a single disciple till date. You know, if you succeed, you will be in charge of the other world. Don't tell her. I will be the one to teach my student. Shutting up immediately, Rashi gave up any arguments with Baba. Let her enjoy her first student. Launch herself seemed to be smiling while hiding her face. She was happy that they cared so much about her, and sad that they will have to manage without her. She is a really kind soul. Raditz thought while looking at Launch. He understood her inner thoughts. Launch just needed that last push. Go ahead. I believe in you. Taking a deep breath, Launch nodded seriously, then gave Raditz a look and stood up. Walking towards Baba, she bowed nervously. I am ready. Giving a decrepit smile, Baba didn't say one more word, and in a snap, both her and Launch vanished. Looking around for a while, Raditz closed his eyes and reopened them after a few seconds. I can't feel her ki. She's gone. Nodding his head like it was the most obvious thing, Rashi got up and started walking towards the TV. Sister is trying to see if she can take over her job. You know, that's why she never took in disciples. That would mean they have to be good enough to succeed her. With his hands folded, Raditz asked back. So she thinks Launch can do it? Sitting himself in front of the TV, Rashi switched on his favorite exercise channel. Yes she does. Sister must have seen something. Oh baby. Ehehe. Shaking his head, Raditz let go. Rashi was clearly very invested in this training program of his. Whatever, you keep watching this. I'll go get on with the real deal. Looking at Raditz after holding the mute button, Rashi asked with wide eyes. Get on with what? Training. You are watching training videos. I'll go get some done in real time. Asterisk few asterisk. Letting out a breath, Rashi waved his students away, who smiled at his master and went ahead towards the ocean. He had Pai waiting for him. After that, he had to make sure he doesn't forget Bulma and Satan's problems either. Satan has given the interview yesterday. Gotta see how are the results, and Bulma is something I should have taken care of yesterday only. Shaking his head, Raditz decided his priorities for today. Training with Pai, eating a whole whale, Satan's work, and what else was there? I forgot. Guess I'll remember soon enough. Taking off his armor and dropping it on the beach, Raditz got down to his tights. He would experience ocean without the insulating armor today. Chapter 33, 9 months. Few months passed by as Raditz kept up his training. He also made it up to Bulma and passed his qualification rounds thanks to Satan. And just like that, he was again closer to the inevitable day Vegeta and Nappa were set to arrive. Asterisk splash asterisk. Taking his head out of water, Raditz took in much-needed air. He was underwater for 30 minutes straight, but he didn't train with Pai for a quiet while now. Asterisk splash asterisk. Another head popped out of the sea. It was Pai's, and she seemed to be taking it easy with one of her hands carrying something big and white. Where are you going? Have you taken care of the shark? It's been disturbing us a lot recently. Pai swam near Raditz and asked with concern, her left hand moving around to show how anxious she was, and her right was carrying something close to her. I took care of it. It won't disturb you guys any longer. Patting Pai on the cheek, Raditz looked at what she was carrying and smiled. Pai also smiled and held it closer to her chest. It needs warm water right now. I can't move away from it. I really wanted you to stay. What if there is any danger? She asked with her emotions again going haywire. She was in a strange state right now, but Raditz had seen it before, so he wasn't surprised. I trained Kaba in underwater combat. He is guarding the cave. It's safe with him. Just tell him what to do. Sighing with relief, Pai Pai wiped the water stains off Raditz and said begrudgingly, "Just come back quickly. I don't like that Kaba. He is like one of those weeds. I sense no intelligence in its eyes." Nodding his head, Raditz slowly began to float out of the water. His armor was already on because he knew today was the World Martial Arts Tournament, and he needed to be there. "I am going to look over a tournament. My lookalike is fighting in my stead, but I might step in if he needs it." Pointing towards the cave, dwelling they spent a lot of time in, Raditz said, "I have set up a waterproof TV in there. It's connected to Capsule Corp satellites. You can watch me in action. Channel name is Raditz Live." Nodding her head, Pai Pai gave a smile and settled her grip on her treasure correctly. "I would have come, but I can't leave the water right now. It needs to stay in here, otherwise it might not hatch." Raditz waved his hand without any problems. He knew how mermaid eggs function long ago from Pai Pai. After the egg was laid, Pai Pai has to protect it for around 9 months. She had gotten extremely protective right now because of this. Nobody can come close to her hideout except her and Raditz. "I know, just cheer me from here. I'll know you are watching me." "Okay, come back soon." Wish. With a lot of water splashing over her face, Pai Pai watched Raditz fly away and brought her attention back to the egg. Patting it once, she gave a gentle smile and dropped back into the ocean. Wish. Flying through the air, Raditz's first destination wasn't the tournament, but the Z Fighters. He was going to the lookout. Raditz didn't expect time would pass so quickly, but he didn't waste any of it either. Bringing his hand towards his face, he clicked on the scouter. Beep. Beep. 10,008? That's an 8 increase for today. Well, it's only the morning. Watching his power level grow to reach 10,000 plus was an amazing sight. It wasn't only his power level that grew. He had gotten a lot of practice with Ultra Instinct. He still can't use it, but he was getting the hang of it at least. Let's see if the Z Fighters are interested in the tournament at all, or do they want to train themselves for the upcoming threat? Well, that was something which he expected the Z Fighters to do. Raditz still wanted to ask at least. And Bulma would be meeting him on the lookout as well. He has to pick her up for the tournament. She was very interested in going. After flying at full speed for half an hour, Raditz reached the Corin Tower. Flying right into the clouds, he finally reached the lookout. Wish. Tap. Stepping on the white tiles of the structure, Raditz showed his ki fully and thus attracted attention almost immediately. "Hey, Raditz, long time no see, man." Krillin, who was meditating, opened his eyes and jumped up enthusiastically. But Raditz's scouter blinked into action immediately. Beep. Beep. 7,050? The hell did you do? The increase from his previous power level was absurd. What did Krillin even go through to attain this? Chapter 34. Rage. Walking towards Raditz with newfound confidence, Krillin rubbed his nose with a flaunting attitude. But then the wave of energy exhibited by Raditz hit him again, and he remembered he isn't that hot after all. "What brought you here, Raditz? Up for a spar?" Grinning lightly, Krillin asked Raditz for a rematch. Sure, he is half as strong, but he has made lots of preparations to deal with stronger foes. "Spar? That would be great, but Bulma is coming and she is already angry enough. I don't think keeping her waiting is a good idea." Scrunching up his face at the memory of Bulma, roaring with rage, Krillin also gave up the spar plan. Rubbing the back of his head, Krillin called Raditz in. They were standing on the edge for a while now. "That's a bummer. Why is she angry anyway? Is that why you are here?" Shrugging his shoulders, Raditz walked along with Krillin while trying to sense other strong presences in the lookout. "She's been like that since she found out I am going to be a dad, and I am here to call you guys for the World Martial Arts Tournament." Stumbling away a few steps, Krillin looked at Raditz with shock. "A dad? No way. Is it Bulma? Then why is she angry? Is it someone else?" Scratching his head, Raditz brought his hand upwards and made a hand sign. He didn't need to, but why the hell not? Poof. In Raditz's place, Pai Pai appeared, who floated in air like it was water. "It's her, the mother of my child. I figured it was good news, but Bulma's being a pain. I hope you don't start as well." Gulping his throat at the drop-dead beauty before him, Krillin nodded his head. "I get how you became a dad," murmured Krillin as Raditz transformed back into himself and walked along. He could sense they were walking towards power levels comparable to Krillin, and Krillin meanwhile made more small talk. "World Martial Arts Tournament, huh? This sure takes me back. But I don't think I can make it this time around. The Saiyans are almost here, I gotta train some more." Giving a small shrug, Raditz accepted the argument. He had already expected this before. Krillin meanwhile searched around for anyone and pulled Raditz down, who looked confused and lowered his head. Reaching for Raditz's ear, Krillin whispered, Are there any more mermaids around your wife? A friend maybe? Taking his ear away from Krillin, Raditz looked at him with confusion. Huh? No, she's the sole mermaid in her area. I haven't asked about any of her friends. What's this all about? Laughing with embarrassment, Krillin made a half-joke, half-truth statement. Hey, Goku's got a kid. Now you have a kid. I am starting to feel lonely here. I can't wait around for long. Nodding his head, Raditz spoke without concealment. So want to get it on with a mermaid? All right, I'll ask Pai Pai if she knows someone. Krillin gave a large smile full of giddiness. Thanks, man. I owe you one. Don't mention it. Asterisk beep asterisk. Asterisk beep asterisk. Asterisk beep asterisk. 7,100? Is this the Triclops? Both had walked up to the sitting area by now, so Krillin didn't have to answer because Raditz had already turned towards Tien. Tien also turned towards Raditz with fighting spirit in his eyes. He didn't even falter, sensing Raditz's 10,000 plus power level. That's new. There's more to him than pure desire to fight. A desire to prove himself? Maybe it's his tri-beam. While Raditz was confident, he wasn't confident enough to fight against Tien if the guy had his Cell Saga tri-beam. Tien had no business holding Cell down for even a single second, much less how long he did. Anyone less powerful would be grilled to oblivion. I want that attack. Time to steal some techniques. Can't do it from far. He's powered up too much for that. Gotta go up close. Asterisk click asterisk. Cracking his knuckles, Raditz walked up to Tien with a smirk on his face. I don't like that look you are giving me, Triclops. Narrowing his olive eyes, Tien stood up with his muscles bulging. Yeah, what are you going to do about it? A deep laughter emanated from Raditz's throat as his hair began to defy gravity. Tien wasn't behind either. His GI was fluttering as his power was being stimulated. He was ready to brawl. Wow, easy there. Let's not destroy the lookout, man. Yamcha got up and tried to pacify the situation, and Krillin put his hands around Raditz too. Come on, Bulma's almost here, and don't you have to tell them the news? This, although didn't stop the glaring contest between Raditz and Tien, it did cool down the situation somewhat. Tien understood that this isn't the time, and Raditz, having already stolen the technique from Tien by now, had no interest in standing face to face. We will settle this later, or we can do it in a while if you are coming to the World Martial Arts Tournament. It's today. I was here to inform. Anyone want to join in? Or I'll win this too easily. Backing up, Tien sat down beside Kaiatsu and looked up at Raditz without any fear. I'll join. I am already as strong as I can get right now. One more month isn't going to do much. Might as well get some actual battle experience against the Saiyan. Tien's challenge was gladly accepted by Raditz, as it was shown by his confident smirk. Yamcha also spoke, but he wasn't interested in going. Nah man, I can't go right now. I am very close to improving my technique, sorry. Waving his hand, Raditz let it go. He expected everyone to not go. Tien was a surprise. But another one was also remaining. What about you, Kaiatsu? Kaiatsu, even after being called out, was silent, then looked up with a bit of heartbreak. I am not able to keep up with you guys. Kami says I haven't reached my limit yet, but I am not improving fast enough. I won't go. I want to train some more. This was a surprise for both Tien and Raditz. Both expected Kaiatsu to stick around Tien, but that goes to show how he too didn't want to be left behind. It's alright, Kaiatsu. I'll win the tournament for both of us. Thanks, Tien. Asterisk wish asterisk. Turning towards the abrupt sound, the Z fighters found a yellow-blue flying machine landing on the lookout. The machine had RB crossed out besides the Capsule Corporation logo. It was this machine which Raditz and Bulma had upgraded together. Asterisk click asterisk. The cockpit opened and Bulma stepped out of it with an exhausted face. Meanwhile, Raditz and the Z fighters had walked up to her, and Raditz twisted his brows looking at the crossed-out RB. Why did you cross it out? That's our machine. Wasn't it like a symbol to show that? Looking at Raditz with an incensed look, Bulma walked up to him and yelled loudly, You jerk. Why didn't you tell me you were a dad? Ooh boy, Raditz is a dad? That's rough, buddy. Krillin, Kaiatsu, Yamcha, and Tien all had different reactions after this information drop. Raditz meanwhile closed his ears and looked annoyed. Why are you screaming on my face? And I told you as soon as I knew. Okay, what's it with you? As if powering up, Bulma's hair floated up from sheer rage. What's it with me? Ugh. The Z fighters looked at each other and silently made distance. They were not going to get involved with this. Chapter 35, Crazy. Yamcha and Co were stupefied. 1 minute Bulma was bickering with Raditz, and the next she was back to normal. How did he do that? Was the question in the mind of every Z fighter. It was like Raditz always knew what to say. He could understand Bulma's intentions, even when she said something else entirely in her anger. They have really good chemistry, at least that much was obvious to everyone. While their relationship doesn't look patched up at all, it was leagues better than before, when Bulma came up to fight him directly. Whatever, I am going to get changed, said Bulma with anger, leaving her slowly. Meanwhile, waving her away, Raditz looked at the crossed-out RB marking. Folding his hands, he emphasized, "And I will be uncrossing this. Do whatever you want." Saying this, Bulma went towards the lookout to borrow a room to get changed. She was not dressed up for the occasion. According to her, she was too angry to get dressed. But now that her mind is clear, she wanted to get ready. Looking at her go, Krillin gulped and looked at Raditz like some sort of wizard. "You really managed to calm down, Bulma, huh? Know what? It'll be your job from now on to tell Chi-Chi any kind of news." Twitching his eyes, Raditz wondered if that was possible. If there was something in Chi-Chi's mind beyond rage and abusive parenting. He could look past Bulma's rage because he knew what she really thought, so he could clear up any misunderstandings between them. But Chi-Chi? Haha. To read minds, Chi-Chi must first have a mind to work with. The only thing up there was how to best abuse her son into a whimpering coward and emotionally destroy him for not following her every word. If Piccolo didn't raise Gohan right, the boy wouldn't even have courage to stand up for himself. Case in point, Gohan became a badass in the future as soon as Chi-Chi was out of the picture. Brother's wife? I'll pass. Laughing lightly, Krillin patted Raditz's back, trying to support his best friend's family a little bit. She's not all that bad, once you get to know her. Raditz, hearing about Krillin's words, paused for a second, then remembered Chi-Chi's various actions throughout the series. Mistreating her father, gaslighting Gohan all his childhood, calling her other son Goten a monster on his face. I somehow doubt there is a human left in there or not. I see. I'll keep that in mind. Raditz didn't say anything much. Chi-Chi might really be an avatar of sheer awesomeness, but Raditz personally didn't find such people very awesome. Step, step, step. Oh, you are back? Giving Raditz a glare, the returning Bulma crossed her arms just like him, a habit she seems to have picked up recently. What? You thought I'll take a long time? Sorry to disappoint you. Shrugging his shoulders, Raditz didn't mind and got into the driver's seat. Wonderful. You coming or not? Snorting softly, Bulma went into the passenger seat and looked the other way. Raditz closed the windows, waved at the Z fighters, and took off. Tien didn't want to come with them. He could see how tense the atmosphere was. He wasn't interested in inserting himself into this mess. Whoosh. Watching them leave, Yamcha asked Tien with good faith, "You sure you want to go right now? Doesn't seem like a good time." Turning the other way, Tien went to get his gear sorted. That was his answer to Yamcha. Wrong timing or not, nothing could stand between him and Raditz's match. Even if he won't follow with them immediately, he will have his fight regardless. Guess that's my answer. Want to watch the tournament? Scratching his head, Krillin shook his lips. No, I'll just train. Together? Sure. Both finally decided to do what they wanted to do before, with Kaiatsu going to do his own thing. Tien was the only one participating in this tournament. He had practiced Tri-Beam with multi-form technique to a very high level. I'll win this, said Tien with confidence. They had made crazy gains because they had spent a whole extra year in the time chamber, and Raditz still surpassed them by so much while training normally. Tien didn't like that, so he wanted to prove to himself that he might be getting stronger slowly when compared to Raditz, but he was still as good of a martial artist. Chapter 36, Hips. In a stadium that would put world-class locations to shame, a massive crowd was gathered. Chatter and excitement was practically filling the air. Before such a massive crowd stood a man who simply belonged here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World Martial Arts Tournament. The announcer who should have taken over in the Universe Tournament was showing his magic once more. Hyping up the crazy crowd some more, he pointed towards the door on the left while standing right in the middle of the tournament arena. As you all know, the man who needs no introduction, the great Simon himself, Raditz, is here. Whoa, Shirik. Yee-eye. He is the reason all aspiring warriors can compete here once more. And that's not all. Raditz would be fighting against the top 3, all by himself. Another loud tsunami of cheers broke out in the audience stands. Raditz has been marketed so thoroughly everyone knew him as some kind of big shot. Step, step, step. Walking out of the dark reaches of the door, a tall figure wearing Saiyan armor and white cape stepped out. Each of his step had a flair to it. He was strong and he knew it. And now the whole world would know it too. Step, step, step. The cheers stopped. Only the figure of Raditz walking towards the center of the stage captivated the audience. His confident smirk, his grace, the Raditz branded shirts they were wearing, everything was telling them one thing. Step. Taking the microphone from the announcer like he owned the place, Raditz raised his fist up. His cape fluttered and his long mane was revealed in all its spiky glory. The stadium once more stood in a standstill as everyone sitting here felt a shiver through their spine. It was as if Raditz was looking at them. Nothing could be hid from him. Yeah. Whoa. The massive cheers flooded the place as the buildings themselves shook from the sheer excitement the audience was feeling. Everything was on fire, except one room, a single VIP room, where a buell-haired girl turned to look at a tall, muscled armored man. Oh yeah? Trying his best to not blush out of sheer shame, Raditz clenched his teeth internally. Do not talk to me. I'll settle this with Satan after the tournament. Looking at Raditz trying hard not to act bothered by his image getting dragged to the ground was a bit cute to Bulma, but she would never say that out loud. She knew him well enough to know how highly this Saiyan pride of his mattered to him. You think this is cute? I'll have you know, I was not privy to this information before now. Bulma snickered. She wasn't able to hide her true feelings after all, so she just did out and hid her face to laugh a little. Rubbing his forehead, Raditz decided to just let Satan do his thing. Raditz's inherent Saiyan pride was asking him to go and demolish this fraud. But it's not logical, he's a showman. This is a show. I gotta understand this dash. And now, it's time for the Raditz dance. Come, let's do this together. Muscles. Muscles. Oh yes, I got those muscles. While Raditz danced with his cape fluttering and his hips shaking, Bulma had to physically hold down the red-eyed Raditz. Wait. Don't go in there now. Turning towards Bulma, who was doing her best to hug him tightly and keeping him in place, Raditz looked at her red-eyed. Let me go. That bastard. I am shaking my hips like some bouffon. I am a warrior dash. I like it. Stopping in place when Bulma said that, Raditz looked at her like she lost her mind. You like that bizarre movement? Are you finally out of your mind? Patting her forehead, Bulma stopped hugging the struggling Raditz and spoke while giving him a look. I don't like the dance, silly. I like it that you are finally loosening up. Bulma didn't give the frowning Raditz time to ask. She herself continued. Don't be so stiff all the time. Holding his stiff muscles lightly, Bulma told Raditz while remembering their conversation at the lookout. You know, this stiffness is what stops you from just speaking. A lot of misunderstandings can be avoided if you just say something. I understand you because I know you. You don't have to say anything to me. Just enjoy the show. Tien won't go down on his own, you know. Bulma finished her speech. A speech that awfully sounded like an acceptance of apology, but Raditz didn't remember asking for one, so he shrugged. Must be nothing. No idea what you mean by that, Blue. If it's about the time I took your food, I'll have you know dash. Stopping for a split second, Raditz turned towards the field where Raditz was currently dancing with the orange-haired girl. Pointing towards the field, Raditz asked Bulma, who was closing her eyes after giving her splendid double-meaning speech, feeling proud of herself. You sure that's okay too? Oh come on, everything is. What is the hell is that guy doing? Hey, stop this. Hey! Now Raditz had to hold down the red-eyed Bulma as the orange-headed girl slipped and fell into the embrace of Raditz, blushing up a storm, getting another wave of cheers out of the crowd. That's the woman, Miss Pieza, Satan's previous manager. Talk about making a mess. Shaking his head at the display and cringing while thinking Pai and the rest of the Z fighters would watch him disgrace himself, Raditz let out a sigh. Never again. But this is a necessary step. As long as I get the attention of King Furry and show Ki to the whole world, all this will be worthwhile. Raditz kept trying to control Bulma, who was out for blood, while thinking about his future plans. If he played this right, he will shoot himself straight to the levels of fame Satan had after the Cell Games. Chapter 37. Ground Rules. No matter how much Raditz hated Satan's show, he understood the man knew how to make a crowd riot. The general human knows nothing about martial arts besides it's cool and violent. Telling them what is useless, said Raditz, his original personality slipping out from behind his Saiyan instinct. Bulma also noticed while sitting beside him how Raditz was making the Sam's eyes her father makes when he was calculating something big. You were right, I am not a fighter, so I don't care about half of the things you guys find interesting. The only reason I can tag along is because I have been around you guys for so long. Nodding his head slowly, Raditz focused on the stage where Raditz was fighting against a beast man. No actual moves, it was all fancy tricks, but it was pumping up the audience and making them go wild. This planet is absurd. I have been on many planets, I have seen civilizations, unique cultures, but this is the first time I have experienced the culture of ignorance. Raditz could tell, most of the audience was here to see blood. They were screaming only because of the hype Satan had created. They didn't understand a thing besides that looks cool, or I'll go and do that at home. Nobody gave a single thought to how much effort the fighters are putting in. No wonder this planet is so low-powered. If I didn't survive by pure chance, your planet would be doomed. All it would take is Vegeta and Nappa going great ape, and even Brother won't be able to beat them. Scoffing Raditz painted a picture that can't happen because the moon was missing and Nappa didn't like transforming. Nappa didn't have his transformation under full control yet. He could retain his mind, but if he got angry he lost temper far too quickly as an Oozuru. But Bulma or the Z fighters didn't need to know that, because Nappa might actually transform this time around. Gulp. I should start working on Android T. You're making me anxious. Bulma rubbed her hair with a pissed-off expression. She hated the fact that the Earth wasn't safe. Raditz training and forgetting to tell her about things made sense to her now. He was far too busy thinking how to save the world. Android T? It's about time. You need me to get something for it? Tao Pai Pai is a master. I would like this android to have all his abilities. Waving her hand, Bulma replied without a second thought. I can do it. Some designs of Android 8 are missing. Dr. Gero didn't sell them, it seems, but I contacted this dealer. Showing 3 with her fingers, Bulma said. She said she'll sell them to me for 30 million zeni. She supposedly came upon it because she robbed them. Her name is Violet, but it's probably a code. Raising his eyebrows, Raditz remembered this Violet girl. She indeed did steal the Red Ribbon Army base, because she was one of their core players. Giving it some thought, Raditz decided to agree to the trade. Tell her you'll get it. I'll protect you myself. There is nothing on this planet which can get past me. Except Bu. But he's still sleeping. Raditz's words evoked a smile from Bulma, who took the opportunity to stay close to Raditz. She already almost lost her chance because she was hesitant, but now she's not going to lose any chance whatsoever. I'll take your word for it. Looking at Bulma speaking sweetie, Raditz gazed into her eyes, something which Bulma took note of and did the same. Slowly she started coming closer. She was going to go for it. Closer. A bit more closer. Whoa whoa. But the loud cheering sounds broke the immersion immediately. Raditz turned his head towards the stadium, looking at Raditz building a crazy following. And Bulma clenched her teeth and sighed. She failed once again. Ladies and gentlemen, Raditz has won against the 3rd place and the 2nd place, a sweeping victory. And now, it's the final battle. The large screen showed Tien in his 3-eyed glory and his amazing set of muscles. Tien, this performer has breezed through the contestants just as easy, but can he stand against our champion? Letting out a breath, Raditz turned towards the exit and said, I'll be fighting now, but I'll be back soon. Sighing with a sad mood, Bulma still cheered up and looked up, wanting to wish him the best. MMPH. Opening her eyes wide, Bulma found Raditz's face moving away, but the sensation was still fresh on her lips. That's all the luck I need. I'll be back, Blue. Same words spoken once more, but this time I'll be back had a different meaning to it. This once again reminded Bulma why she was into tough guys, and Raditz was the toughest of them all. I'll have to talk to Pai Pai, muttered Bulma as she watched Raditz leave. She needs to set some ground rules if she wants to do this. Chapter 38. Raditz vs. Tien. After all his work was done, Raditz left the stage for some quick rest, and shortly afterwards Raditz walked out of the resting area. Immediately, those few in the know-how realized that Raditz was different from his usual self. He looked much more like a warrior. All of his previous caricatures must have been a facade, is what the select few thought simultaneously. He was simply having fun because they were too weak for him to go all out. If not this, his present self didn't make any sense whatsoever. Raditz's aura alone was making wind change direction. And now for the final bombastic battle. On the right we have Raditz, our personal star. And on the left we have Tien, a fighter who has no equal. Until now. But this time around cheers didn't flood the arena. Raditz's presence wasn't something they could cheer for, it was something more. Multiple gulping sounds were heard throughout the audience. Their throats were dry. So this was the full power of their hero, they wondered. He was a tiger and they were the rabbits. When he shows his presence, they tremble in fear, and Raditz was showing his presence, all right. All 15,008 bits of presence. He hid his strength. Gripping his fist, Tien narrowed his eyes. Raditz didn't have such strength when he came to invite him. He was around twice as strong before, but now he is almost 3 times as powerful. Still, a challenge isn't something Tien is afraid of. Regardless if or not the audience cheered, he walked out. The announcer also caught on to the fact that Raditz's presence was too overwhelming, so he began steering the direction accordingly. Such strength. I can feel it in my bones. Can you? Can you also feel Simon's power smashing into you? After a single second of wait, the first person finally got rid of his innate fear as his fanboy took over. His scream started a chain reaction. Oh, finally getting rid of the bondage. The audience felt coming here was worth it. Where else could they feel this trembling sensation? It was better than 3D movies. Looks like I am not the only one, but it's to be expected. Some of you might remember the previous winner of this World Martial Arts Tournament. He was named Goku, and Raditz here is his older brother. It runs in the family, everyone. Goku destroyed the entire arena with his massive strength, but we have a tempered arena this time around. Can Raditz achieve the same feat? The audience waited with bated breath as the announcer painted a picture that would let them cope with anything supernatural afterwards. Now it looks like I have said enough. Both fighters are rearing to go. Tien, Raditz, please come onto the stage. Saying this, the announcer simply walked off the stage. He was told to build hype, and he did so, but he was also there personally when key attacks were common. He had seen Rashi destroying the moon, Goku going great ape. He has seen the likes of Bacterian and Piccolo Jr. wreaking havoc. And he had seen the final fight of Goku and Piccolo. The entire stadium was destroyed and he survived by chance. Now it's Goku's older brother. Let's hope this sturdy arena isn't going to break down too quickly. Having finished his thoughts, the announcer took 2 more steps back, because he remembered Tien too liked to use multiform technique and attack from all corners. His job was difficult, but he loved it very much. Please begin. 3, 2, 1, go. But being warriors, neither started the battle as soon as they were told to. Getting into his stance, Tien told Raditz, "You hid your strength." It wasn't a question, it was a statement, to which Raditz nodded with his hands folded, taking no stance whatsoever. This caused Tien to frown. "Are you looking down on me?" Having a relaxed body, Raditz smiled. "No, I am in fact using my best technique, let's call it Ultra Instinct Domain. It's not quite there yet, but I hope I'll have it figured out in this fight." Raising his eyebrows, Tien took a closer look at Raditz's relaxed body, and now after seeing it with his third eye, he caught a glimpse. Raditz wasn't open, he was in fact covered in every direction. No matter which direction the attack comes from, Tien could see Raditz can defend. "Amazing," murmured Tien, a very novel technique, but he will understand it even better if he personally went ahead and experienced it. Whoosh. Without giving Raditz any more chance, Tien almost vanished from the eyes of the audience. Step, who promptly saw him appear beside Raditz's head, his leg extended in a kick, and Raditz's head tilted just enough for the attack to miss. Such speed. Nobody but the best fighters can see them coming. But worry not, for we have slow-motion cameras. Raditz and Tien began their clash, which was more Tien attempting to hit Raditz at least once, but failing repeatedly. As the red-hot fight was going on, especially made software process their fight in real time, and showed it without the slow motion but making them visible in the frames. Earthlings might be willfully ignorant and derive happiness from taking decisions based on emotions rather than facts, but now that their emotions were also triggered in this fight, and they could see what was really happening, they were totally on board. Anyway, this was thought up by Satan, and he knew what clicked and what didn't. Huh. Bang. Finally a well-timed Donan Ray managed to hit Raditz's chest, pushing him back as he quickly deployed his ki to defend the attack. Patting his chest with a fearful emotion, Raditz wondered why he was again being hit on that spot he was drilled through before. Don't tell me, my chest is like Vegeta's arm? Always damaged. Oh man, that would suck so hard. Deciding to pay extra attention to his chest, Raditz patted his smoking armor and looked at the waiting Tien. Sorry about that, this technique isn't perfect yet, thanks for waiting now. Narrowing his eyes, Raditz's hair began floating as he crouched down in a stance. I'll begin my attack, try to survive. Bang. A big fist is all Tien saw before his chin was hit, shaking his brain, but his eyes didn't lose focus even now. Pish. 3 energy beams fired from Tien's eyes, almost hitting Raditz, who dodged by instinct once again, and gave a roundhouse kick straight to Tien's neck. Crack. Thud. Rolling onto the ground after a terrible cracking sound came from getting his neck kicked, Tien was shook. Close combat with Raditz, who was 3 times stronger than him, wasn't good enough. If only his attacks hit, he could still do something. But Raditz dodged every attack he threw. He needed to make distance and increase the number of people if he wants to beat Raditz. I know how to win this. With this thought, Tien slowly rose up, cracking his neck once to remove the dull pain. The audience meanwhile gasped, looking at the replay of the fight and the glowing energy attack from Tien's eyes. The announcer was telling something to the audience, but neither Tien nor Raditz were paying attention. They had something much more important. Tien was going to do something, and Raditz was looking forward to the technique. More he practiced, more he'll get Ultra Instinct down. Chapter 39. Multiform. Screech. After another bout, Raditz skidded to a stop, his Saiyan boots giving him a better grip compared to Tien, who kept going for a bit longer before stopping. Smiling a smile that was full of pride, Raditz folded his hands, and from behind his fur-covered waist a brown tail slowly slithered out. Warm-up's over. Now Triclops, open your eyes and watch. Watch how a real Saiyan fights. Tien could swear he saw Raditz's pupils take on a tinge of gray for a second before he was pelted through the arena. Gah! An intense pain rang throughout Tien's body. This one attack was more than sufficient to put the Triclops down. Trying to stand up, Tien was failing repeatedly. This attack was deadly, way too deadly. Tien didn't even get to do his technique before he was taken out in a single attack. Don't bother, you are hurt too badly. I have hit all your weak points instantly. The only way you could have seen this coming is by pure instinct. But you did well, at least you were still conscious. Tien's mouth was dripping saliva and blood. His eyes were bloodshot as he tried his hardest to get up. Raditz, seeing him struggling without any result, finally gave him a look and turned his back. He was walking away. This instantly caused Tien's blood pressure to rise. His veins popped. His body was releasing adrenaline in bursts. Where do you think you are going? Getting a second wind from sheer hysterical strength, Tien somehow managed to stand up. He was taken out in one single attack, just one. As soon as their warm-up was over, he went down. This was utterly disgraceful. He was a guy who saw second form cell decimate everyone including Super Saiyans and went ahead to fight anyway. And weirdly enough, He even managed to do what nobody else could. He won. Not his battle against Cell in general, but the overall war. And seeing Raditz's unfazed look but stopping back, Raditz knew it too. Tien was tapping into every human's innate potential, their hysterical strength. I can't fight much longer, one attack. That's all I can do. Bringing his hands in a cross position, Tien crouched down, his eyes bloodshot. Huh. And just on cue, 3 more Tiens phased into existence, who promptly ran towards the 3 corners, Tien himself jumping to the last corner. The multiform technique, Tien's speciality, nobody could copy this. Is it Tien's own innate ability? I wonder. 3 eyes, 3 clones, we got a Rinnegan over here. While Krillin was shown to copy the technique in the anime, that was filler. In the canon, this technique and Tien's eye beams were specifically his. Well, eye beam was something people like Piccolo and Frieza could also do, but it wasn't copied by other humans, maybe an alien thing, but that was debatable. After Goku survived this attack, he showed me its flaws clearly. I won't make the same mistake twice, Raditz. All 4 Tiens spoke. Simultaneously their voices rang. The announcer was also saying something with passion while running away, but neither Tien nor Raditz paid attention. The multiform and tri-beam combination. An area-wide attack. I can't dodge this with instinct alone. My technique doesn't work all the time. Only if I had the whole thing mastered it would be a different story. As expected of a once rival of Goku, Tien found countermeasures to Raditz's state almost immediately. This was what made the Z fighters stand out, their sheer battle IQ. If not for lagging behind in strength, Goku wouldn't always be the strongest without question. Shin. Putting his hands together, Tien made a triangle with his palms. A logic-breaking triangle which makes a square-shaped hole? Somehow, with veins bursting on his head, Tien finally gathered enough energy for one intense attack. Kick-a-ho. Raditz's eyes turned, his tail hair stood up. He was feeling threatened. His first thought was flying up, but as soon as that thought came, his instincts rang. There is threat up there. Raditz didn't have enough time to think how Tien got rid of the one weakness in his technique, because the attack was upon him from every direction. Growling. At the very last minute, Raditz's eyes finally took on a yellow glow. His hair floated and got more spiky. Veins popped on his body, and the attack, boom, finally hit, shaking the arena as a massive hemisphere of pure energy covered the entire stadium. Screams of the audience was the least of the tournament staff's concern. Tien's 7100 power level supported tri-beam was too strong. Raditz, you 3-eyed bastard, what did you do to him? Pai Pai screamed at the television, and the egg beside her trembled, glowing a white glow once, showing its anger while mimicking its mother. While Saiyan babies did what Saiyan babies did best when not participating in Super Saiyan God rituals, the tournament staff and Satan were walking on fire. It's terrible. Satan's teeth chattered. He was imagining himself having to fight like that whenever he transformed into Raditz. This was so much pressure. You guys. Patting her head, Bulma looked a bit worried. She had seen these kinds of fights a lot, but it doesn't stop her from worrying. As Bulma concentrated on the stadium while standing on the window, the dust finally began to settle. Ahem. Mr. Tien has doled out a fantastic attack. The entire reinforced arena is destroyed. Can Raditz survive this? The announcer pushed himself off some debris and screamed with passion, giving the panicking crowd's emotions a place to emerge from. Simon, 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 I love you. The audience began chanting just like they always did in canon, but instead of Satan, this time it was Simon. The dust is clearing. I think I see someone. Who is it? Who's the winner of the World Martial Arts Tournament? The announcer pumped the audience more, and the dust finally began to lessen in density. As the visibility slowly came back a little, everyone could make out a single person standing in the middle of the arena. But no one was happy. Instead, everyone was unsettled. Who? Who is that? A fanboy said while his body was trembling, because in the place Raditz was supposed to be, stood a gigantic monkey-like monster. Its stance was the same as Raditz when he was forced to take the attack head-on, but its maw and the pure red eyes showed its wildness. The great ape himself was also still, as if thinking about where to wreak havoc. Ah, dang it, triggering Akari with a tail is way too hard. I messed up and transformed completely. But it wasn't wreaking havoc that was on Raditz's mind. It was that he messed up his control of Iakari. After all, its entire thing was triggering Oozaru without a tail. Now all Raditz was thinking about was how to salvage this situation. Chapter 40, Warrior Race. A trembling pressure was present around the stadium. Raditz's 10 times boosted Oozaru ki was like a predator's gaze. Raditz's all red eyes slowly blinked. Then the Oozaru broke its defending stance. Gulp. Straightening his gigantic body, the Oozaru crossed both his hands and turned his head towards the announcer, which got the announcer to snap out of it. Clearing his throat, he said, Ahem. Ladies and gentlemen, Simon has done it. A light mumbling was heard throughout the audience. As they tried to understand, what did the Simon do? Are they supposed to know? They sure wanted to know. I think the audience is dying to know the final results. But before that, can I please ask Mr. Raditz to cancel his transformation? It's hard to interview you from down here. The planted agents in the audience began laughing at their cue, and like sheep, everyone followed along with the bad joke, not wanting to look stupid for not understanding. Satan has ideas, all right. Raditz sighed, sensing Satan barking instructions through the microphone to everyone. That's why Raditz left it to the professionals. Relieved that he didn't have to do any explaining, Raditz let out a breath and began shrinking down. This caused another wave of cheers from the audience because the announcer had by now convinced everyone this was Simon's power. Tien or Tiens, they are knocked out all right, mumbled Raditz while watching the unconscious Tiens lying on all corners of the arena. The announcer internally sighed. He remembered how Goku had to be controlled when he lost it. That's why he was stuck, not knowing what to do now. He is the older brother of Goku after all. He can control this monster form. That's a good name. Monster form. I'll go with that. Dodging the rubble in his path, the announcer ran up to Raditz, who maintained the same cross-armed posture, looking like a tough guy. Amazing! Was that the monster form set to release in the latest chapters of Simon from Space? The what and what now? Raditz's eyes twitched, then he searched and understood from the announcer that Satan had capitalized on his alien backstory. He was selling Simon comics and merchandise, and this monster form is something the announcer made up on the spot to help him. These guys, they have no shame. Raditz was speechless, but he was not in a position to say anything. The audience was eating this up. He could even hear people comparing him with a werewolf. The ancestor or werewolf, the one true progenitor, the savior of half-human hybrids, and many such titles. And hearing all that was enough for Raditz. He understood what his current situation was. Yes, this is my monster form. Its name is Oozuru. This is something every Saiyan can do. We are a warrior race, best of the best. Now Raditz decided to drip-feed this information for two reasons. Not only was this in line with this Simon from Space comic, it was also meant as a reminder to King Furry. King Furry knows quite a bit about this world. Not only did he personally meet King Piccolo, he was also aware of Goku's strength. This should make it easier to get a meeting set. Now it's Satan's duty to do the rest. The announcer, meanwhile, was walking around Raditz and telling all sorts of stories from the comic, all on Satan's order. And this was as much as Raditz was willing to entertain the crowd. He had much bigger fish to care about. Pai, she was the bigger fish Raditz cared about more than anything right now. She, after all, was carrying his spawn. Do your job, Raditz said under his breath, and the announcer immediately snapped out of it and quickly came to Raditz and raised his hand up. And with this, I announce Raditz has won the World Martial Arts Tournament. We have a winner. Hoo-hoo. Gazing upon the cheering crowd with his hand raised in victory, Raditz finally gave a smirk. This endeavor was worth the effort. Now only 1 month is remaining, and he will need it to get his Oozuru training done. I'll get Tien on the way out. Telling this to the announcer, Raditz vanished from the spot and collected all 4 Tiens, who vanished into one as soon as they touched each other. Tuning out the announcer and the audience, Raditz walked towards the doctor's room. Tien had taken a solid beating. He needed some medical attention. Chapter 41. Meeting the King. 2 weeks quickly went by. The tournament was one of the most popular events in the recent years on Earth. Although Raditz spent all his time on the shore of Kame House with Pai and their newest member, this didn't stop the world from moving forward. And what Raditz was waiting for was finally happening. Whoosh! A flying machine was landing on the shores of Kame House. It was blowing wind across the resting Rashi and the gigantic Oozuru sitting on the sandy ground. SSSH. Opening the door, Bulma jumped out of the machine and quickly walked towards the Titan. Hey, Raditz, Satan said your phone is not reachable. He wanted to speak with you. As Bulma approached the Titan, both the Oozuru and Pai looked over. Oozuru opened its red eyes, and Pai stopped humming a mermaid tune and looked towards Bulma. Oh, it's the homewrecker. What do you want now? Pai's words immediately got to Bulma, who was about to snap at Pai, something which Raditz stopped right in its tracks. Not now, Pai. Bulma's not here to fight. This had Pai turn her head the other way, and Bulma did the same with a snort. Then she rolled her eyes and got to the point. Like I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted. Hiss. Ignoring Pai's hissing warning, Bulma continued. Satan's managed to set a meeting with King Furry, and he wants to meet you today. Narrowing his gigantic eyes, Oozuru Raditz released a deep hum. Then his size began shrinking swiftly, and in a few seconds, he was back into his original form. Click. Snapping sounds came from his spine as Raditz shook off his laziness. He was sitting here as an Oozuru for 2 whole weeks. While fixing his hand guards, Raditz turned towards Bulma. Today? Good. When is the meeting? In an hour, replied Bulma, to which Raditz nodded and turned to Pai and Rashi. I'll be off then. Any of you want to come? Pai was his partner, so if she wanted to come, Raditz would take her without fail, and Rashi was a legend of martial arts world. Him tagging along will increase the weight his party holds. I can't. She's beginning to move around. What if she hatches and can't find me? Pai Pai held her egg close of her body while speaking. Their child was already close of hatching, and Raditz could already sense a little mermaid curled up inside. And observing her hairstyle, Raditz had a rare moment of emotion. She looks just like her. Jine, his mother of this life, that was how his child looked like. And it wasn't only the looks which matched, it was her overall feel that got Raditz do a double take when he first saw her. Is that so? All right, we can't leave little Jine alone now, can we? You can stay. So what about you, Master Rashi? Care to tag along? Lifting his sunglasses, Rashi thought about it and denied as well. I am old. I can't make such a long journey nowadays. Nodding his head, Raditz got the hidden message. No way I am leaving my magazines for some king, is what Rashi meant. You are done? We gotta leave. Rushed Bulma while looking at her watch. She felt like she was the only one responsible here. Not saying anything more, Raditz walked to her, and together they got on the flying machine. Whoosh. Watching them set off, Pai Pai waved at Raditz, who returned the gesture till she was visible. Bulma was a bit sour, but she ignored it. She and Pai Pai did talk after the tournament. It didn't go as planned. They still definitely don't look eye to eye, but at least it wasn't as bad as it was at the beginning. What are you going to say to King Furry anyway? You never told me. Changing the sour mood, Bulma asked Raditz what was on her mind. With his hands folded, Raditz narrowed his eyes. Vegeta and Nappa are set to arrive in about a week. Considering their style, they will land in one of the most populated cities. Then either of them, mostly Nappa, would eradicate the entire city in one attack. It's a way of showing we are here to the planet. Remembering the days he was tagging along with them, Raditz smiled. Nappa taught this tactic to me. It saved my life many times before. Bulma pursed her lips. Raditz sure lived a hard life. She can't even imagine having to live on like this all her life. She liked adventure, but only adventure all her life was too much for her. This Vegeta guy is a jerk, and this Frieza guy too. You should kick some sense into them for making you go through such a life. Laughing loudly at Bulma's words, Raditz smirked viciously. I will. Vegeta will get back all that he has thrown our way, and Frieza, he'll die. Vegeta right now wasn't the guy who sacrificed himself to kill Bu. He was the Vegeta who didn't care one bit if Raditz lived or died and killed Nappa with his own hands. Vegeta is a dangerously evil character right now, and Raditz wasn't sure he could beat some sense into him or not. He wasn't Goku. He didn't have his charisma. Serves them right. You should kick their asses. Agreed Bulma. She also knew by now how many horrible things Raditz had to do living with his team and while working under Frieza. Raditz was such a sweet man. She would have given those guys a piece of her mind herself if Raditz didn't talk her out of that. So, what's Satan doing in all this? Satan? He is going to use this to my advantage. What he'll do is dash. And so Raditz and Bulma kept narrowing down what they should say and how they should proceed. Bulma might not be a fighter, but she is the next leader of Capsule Corporation. She has a pull. A lot of pull on many things. That's one of the reasons she's going with Raditz to meet the king. With their conversations making the flight more entertaining, both finally reached their destination. We are here. That's Satan. Oh, the king has come out himself. Let's go, Raditz. Nodding his head, Raditz opened the door and, ignoring Bulma's yelling, jumped down from the sky. Bang! The guards all around were scared and immediately pointed their guns at the object that crashed from the sky. The dust settled, and from the crater Raditz walked out, his tail on full display and his large body pressuring everyone into submission. King Furry, I have a proposition to make. The king gulped. He could see how his guards were unable to shoot. He saw both King Piccolo and Goku in Raditz. The king had a good enough idea now on how to proceed. Whatever Raditz wanted to propose, he needed to take it very seriously. Chapter 42, Ruler. Walking out of King Furry's office, Raditz had an emotionless face, but Bulma was anxious and helpless. Neither said anything while walking. Satan had stayed behind to do what was needed, but Raditz had decided to walk out. After getting out of the office without haste, Raditz and Bulma boarded the flying machine and quickly took off. Aren't you upset? Asked Bulma after a while of silence. Raditz had gone and told King Furry vital information, but the results were not up to the mark. Raditz kept silent for a while, before speaking. Not really. King Furry isn't a bad ruler, but he is also forced by circumstances. He is right. Even after knowing they are coming, we don't know which city they might arrive in. He can't exactly evacuate every city, even if we narrow it down to a region. Bulma pursed her lips. She understood that, but the implications didn't sit right with her. But that would mean everyone in that city would be killed. Their promise to keep the army stationed at every city is as useless as it can get. Everyone will just get slaughtered until one of you guys arrive. Raditz kept quiet. He understood the implications, but there wasn't much he could do. Evacuating every single citizen in record time out of a city was plain impossible. King Furry did say he will try to minimize the losses as much as he can, but Nappa only needs to raise 2 fingers and everything will be over. Looking towards Bulma, Raditz shrugged. It's an unavoidable thing. We can try and resurrect the good ones using Dragonballs if you want. Waving her hand, Bulma replied. And discuss the Dragon Balls with him? Given his track record, I would rather not. Shrugging lightly, Raditz let it go. They will do what is needed in due time. And he didn't come out of there without any gain. He got exactly what he wanted to get. Looking out of the window, Raditz corrected her on one thing. You don't have to ask them for anything. He is now king in name alone. It's me who holds the military might. Raditz took over a lot of departments today, and not only was King Furry supportive of this, he also gave Raditz authority equivalent to himself. King Furry was a peaceful king, yet he knew how powerful real martial artists could get, but they barely cared about much, so his hands were tied. Someone like Raditz was rare. Although he too didn't care much for ruling, his manager Satan was into it wholeheartedly. King Furry knew he wouldn't be able to find another chance like this again, and he took it the second it presented itself. It surprised me. He practically invited you as the second in command. The King Piccolo thing really gave him a scare. Raditz nodded. Even in canon, it was only King Furry who didn't believe Satan's lies. He always spoke with assurance that it was either Goku or someone like Goku who killed Cell. It might be so, but I think me being Kakarot's older brother is what pushed him to choose me. He seems to have a soft spot for brother. Like so many do. Thought Raditz. It was absurd how many benefits being Goku's older brother had brought him. Not only Rashi trained him without too many concerns, he also got to meet Baba easily. He had a great impression on the Z fighters and now King Furry's case. Yet Goku never used anyone for his own benefit, purity of heart at his best. Kakarot is kind. He takes over Mom too much. He even denied money that was rightfully his, even as Satan came to deliver it to his door. Talk about a sage-like mentality. Shaking his head, Raditz let go of his brother's case. Goku suffered quite a bit due to this purity, not only financially but generally. But now he was here. He was Goku's older brother, and now the person who practically controlled the entire planet. Goku's family wouldn't be facing a financial crisis, at least on his watch. Now there's a week remaining, give or take. I should do what I can during this time, mumbled Raditz. Bulma turned to him and looked deviously. Why don't you come to my house for a while? We can work out some kinks in Android T. Anyway, what will you learn with Rashi in only a week? Humming lightly, Raditz thought about it for a bit. I can. My OASRA training's done. It's all basic instinct training for now, but I am not leaving Pai Pai alone. And she is adamant that she wants the egg to hatch on sand, even though it's completely unnecessary. Giving him a look, Bulma decided to focus on the plus side. At least he agreed to come. As for that snatcher, she will think of a way out. I have artificial beaches in my house. She can stay there. There's also medical care for the child. It's better than Rashi's island, right? Suggested Bulma. Although she didn't look eye to eye with that fish, that didn't mean she was a fool. This suggestion of hers was good for each one of them. There is no way the fish can make her look bad again. That sounds alright, fine. I'll ask Pai Pai. Celebrating in her mind, Bulma speeded up towards Kame House. The sooner they reach Capsule Corp the better. And Raditz decided to prepare for the inevitable fight. Not only was it personal, it was also this world-ending threat that will push him to levels of fame even Satan didn't get. Satan used the Cell threat to make his career. Raditz will use the Saiyan threat. As far as the Earth is concerned, both are world-ending calamities. Simon versus Spaceman. I can already see it now, muttered Raditz internally. All this would be on camera, so he had to at least remember some lines before he begins his real punch-up. This would be the final time he would need to act. Not only will he then have world-saving fame of Satan, he will also publicly be the second in command. It'll all come together as soon as the Scions arrive. Chapter 43. Scions arrive. Raditz was in a white lab coat, his tall frame looking a bit out of place yet strangely in character for this type of clothing. The floating Pai Pai swimming through the air seemed to think so too, admiring her partner with stars in her eyes and a little mermaid in her arms. Meanwhile, Raditz was working on a human-looking torso. Wiping his sweat, he asked Bulma, who was working with two robotic arms just on the side. You sure this is a good idea? Giving Android T a full body key generator would make our work of programming him much harder. It'll turn from basic microchip to nano-level encoding. This is creating artificial mechanical life. We can't make a mistake. Although Android 8, who Android T was based on, was also full-blown mechanical life with a will of its own, but Android T was an upgraded version. He was much closer to Android 16 than he was to 8. The only thing which was not up to the mark was the infinite key generator. Looking at Bulma, who turned to look at him, Raditz made his concerns known. Android 8 runs on electricity, so does Android T, a battery life of 10 years standby, 1 year active, 1 week while fighting, and 1 day while going full power, isn't to be taken lightly. We can't have this thing run off on its own. We have to make sure he is programmed to listen to our commands. None of the androids made by Jero have a good track record. Be it Android 8, 16, 17, 18, all of them were working on their own. Even if 16 was a bit better, but he too possessed the ability to ignore his coding. Bulma meanwhile had a look of realization. Although she didn't know about the future androids and their independence, she did know about the case of Android 8. Don't worry about that. I am thinking of building everything based on him obeying our commands. I had to dumb down his intelligence though. Now he's more akin to a really smart robot, not a full-blown artificial life. Nodding his head, Raditz soldered a wire in place using his key while speaking. I see. A real artificial life was too uncontrollable, so you opted for a robot with the intelligence of one. It's a good enough idea that Violet might have tried to pull a fast one on us, but after taking her down, her information did indeed come in handy. Uea. Quickly stopping his words because little Jine was starting to cry, Raditz dropped his work and went to console her with Pai. Bulma too stopped for a bit. They were talking too much. They must have woken her up. Although she had important modifications remaining, taking a break didn't hurt. While the trio was fussing over baby Jine, on the lookout an atmosphere of concern was present. Do you feel that? Asked Yamcha, to which Krillin grinned while sweating just a tiny bit. Yeah, Raditz wasn't kidding. Those guys are here. Kairatsu was also looking towards the sky. He felt the powers and spoke gravely. That one is as strong as I am. He must be Nappa, and that one. That must be Vegeta. He's strong, said Tien. Finishing Kairatsu's words, Tien didn't take his loss at Raditz's hands all too well, but he wasn't a fool. He knew that guy was about as strong as Raditz. They needed Raditz to take him on. Because Goku was out of the question for now. Did Goku seriously just start to cross this snake way? How long will he take? Asked Krillin. Goku being out of the picture was not giving them a big confidence boost. Because they still remember it very well, Raditz specifically told them when he first met them, both of them can become 10 times as strong. So what might look like a winnable battle now as long as they stick together, will directly transform into them getting slaughtered. You can mope around and feel sorry for yourself all you want. I'm going out.
Weit Tien.
Kairatsu exclaimed at the figure of Tien jumping off the lookout. Before Kairatsu also jumped off, Kami found this to be a good place to interject. Otherwise they might hold animosity towards Tien due to his words. I am afraid Tien is right. We must face this threat bravely. I will contact Raditz now. He will be more than enough to keep the strongest one of them at bay. Kairatsu nodded first and ran off quickly behind Tien. Yamcha smiled with confidence and looked at their direction with a smirk, and he too blasted off. Rubbing the back of his neck, Krillin gave a last look to Kami. Kami, guess I gotta go now. Whoosh. Flying off the lookout, Krillin too rushed towards the direction he sensed the Saiyan in. Kami walked up to the edge of the lookout and looked down, his vision ignoring distance and watching the crashed space pods slowly open. Mr. Popo, please call Raditz. I am afraid the Earth is in danger. Yes, Kami. With a short response, Mr. Popo walked off. He was going to get his flying carpet. While Popo walked off, Kami gripped his fist so tightly that his fingers dug into his skin and drew blood. He then bit his lips so hard that it also started drawing blood. Then he proceeded to seethe in rage like a stable-headed man should. Or not. Kami gripped his cane a bit tightly like any normal person without hidden self-destructive tendencies would do in times of stress. They are much too close. It'll be a massacre. Closing his eyes with grief, Kami watched reporters run towards the crater with cameras and the troops starting to arrive with firepower. This was not a sight the kind God wanted to see. He hoped the Earth's protectors can arrive in time. Chapter 44. Fragile Humanity. Nappa and Vegeta felt a slight shock. This was the standard shock that came with the landing of their space bots. The duo's eyes slowly fluttered now that their destination had arrived. SSSH. The doors of Saiyan pods opened after a year-long journey. Smoke emerged from its hinges, breaking the airtight environment inside the pod. Click, click.
Stern, Mutter, Stern.
Nappa frowned. His eyes saw only intermediate flashes of bright white light and muttering. These people have done it now. Smirked Nappa. He was going to give these guys a taste of hell. Opening his mouth wide, Nappa fired a beam of energy right at the crowd gathered before him, all the while sitting inside his pod. Boom. A lazy Nappa's attack decimated the entire street surrounding him and took with it all the reporters and civilians who had joined in the fun. Step. Smirking haughtily, Nappa stepped out of the space pod. Vegeta followed along with his hands folded and a bored look to him. But immediately both of their scouters started showing a bunch of low power levels approaching the area. Would you look at that, Vegeta? They prepared a welcoming party for us. Snorting proudly, Vegeta looked around the devastated area, while completely ignoring the army arriving at their location. He was Vegeta. These small fries aren't his to handle. Previously Raditz used to do it, but the trash went ahead and got himself killed. Looks like they don't quite understand what they are up against. Vegeta. Should I show him? Nappa, being an old experienced man, understood Vegeta wasn't going to make a move anytime soon. But he can't go and do things without the permission of the prince. He might have been taking care of Vegeta and Raditz since they were kids. But Vegeta held no affection for anyone, even his own remaining kin. Nappa understood that well enough when Vegeta refused to revive Raditz. Don't blow off everything in your path. There are Dragonballs here on this planet. Destroying them by mistake won't be good. Won't be good for me, is what you mean, isn't it, Vegeta? Thought Nappa, although he didn't show much other than a slightly instinctive scared expression. I get it. I'll be careful. Finishing with a bloodthirsty smirk of his own, Nappa turned towards the army and the fighter jets flying in the sky. I am gonna have fun with this, huh? Rushing towards the crowd of military men who began shooting at him the moment he yelled, Nappa tore into their group. Bang! A swift punch to the head immediately blasted the entire upper body of an armored soldier, but Nappa wasn't stopping. He was going ham. Boom! Each of his bloodthirsty attacks were showing his inner frustration. He wasn't going to show it as it was Saiyan nature, but he was saddened by the death of Raditz at the hands of these puny earthlings. Tick. Catching a bullet fired his way, Nappa turned to look at a scared man in armor pointing his gun at him. You people love to play with these toys, don't you? Flick. A single finger flick is all it took to tear through the helmet of the soldier. He died by his own bullet. Nappa would show them all hell. These worms didn't deserve to kill one of their last ones. Raditz was with Nappa since he was a child. Nappa practically raised both Vegeta and Raditz after the destruction of their planet. He wasn't as cold-blooded as Vegeta was. Nappa was an old Saiyan. Although he, like every other Saiyan, wasn't into showing affection, he still held a deep bond with Raditz and Vegeta. Clinch. Catching one of the men by his neck, Nappa smiled at him viciously. He wanted to know where he could get these Dragon Balls. He still wanted to revive Raditz if that was possible. Even if Vegeta had denied right away, Nappa would try and convince him if there was more than one wish. Say, where are the Dragon Balls? The man almost didn't even hear Nappa as he was scared out of his wits. His mouth was closed forcefully as his jaw was held together with his neck by Nappa's massive hands. Don't know? Pity. Click. Before the man could even try and let Nappa know he couldn't speak, Nappa broke the man's neck. Nappa might seem reckless, but this was a tried and tested tactic. Now the remaining men would think twice before they speak. Now then, which one of you can dash? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da! Exclamation point. Nappa's voice immediately cut off because the fighter planes had started firing right onto Nappa. Even the men standing around him weren't spared. They had gotten a green signal. They had to fire, or they would risk losing more than a few soldiers. Da-da-da-da-da-da! The continuous air support was breaking apart the concrete roads. Dust was flying through the air and majority of the firepower was concentrated on Nappa's position. Move, move. The remaining army platoon leader somehow commanded the rest to move out. This was not even a fight. It was a massacre. Taking cover behind a broken bench, the platoon leader peeked out. His hands went towards his neck and took off his heat vision binoculars. With shaking hands, he looked through the thing and almost froze in place. Keys! Keys! Looking upwards towards the fighter planes, the platoon leader yelled with all his might, his eyes desperate. Move! Move now! He's coming, dash! Bang! But his desperate shout was of no use. Nappa inhumanely flew right through a jet plane, his upper body sticking out of the now crashing hunk of metal. You are pissing me off. Crack. But it seemed the giant of a man wasn't happy with the inevitable crash of the jet, as he began tearing the metal monster with his bare hands in the sky, making everyone watching the spectacle freeze in place. Boom. The fuel tank soon ignited and blew up the metal monstrosity, but the man immediately rammed into the window of another jet. Aya! Smiling at the screaming pilots, Nappa knocked on the window of the jet, while hanging onto the thing as it flew at full speed. Knock, knock. Boom. Another blast shook the skies. Flaming metal and petrol rained from the skies. The audience watching this in their homes were petrified. The army was paralyzed. Their air defense was now just flying praise. Humanity was losing. Is this the doomsday? The platoon leader said powerlessly. Their force was getting obliterated. He has to fall back. He cannot see any more of his men getting killed. Touching his headset, inside of which was now sweaty due to the environment, the leader contacted the base. Base, Zero here. We need to fall back. The situation isn't something we can handle. Denied. Immediately an answer came, which caused Zero to clench his gun. Even that was not bringing him safety. Request for backup. We cannot last much longer. Denied. Blood rushed to Zero's head. As he found his requests being denied repeatedly, he was watching his men die every second. You dash. ZZ. Backup is arriving. After a short transmission error, Zero was pleasantly surprised that backup was arriving. Request to support until backup arrives? ZZ. No need. Fall back. Backup is here. It's here. Where? When Zero thought with a confused expression, his searching eyes shrunk into pinholes because he could see a shadow that was becoming increasingly larger. Oh shit! Cursed Zero as he looked up. A large flaming jet fighter was 3 seconds away from crashing on his spot. I can't make it. Understood Zero. There wasn't enough time to move out of the way. With that realization, the world slowed down. And it was because of this that he could see it clearly. A man with 4 arms flashed before him. Thump. And caught the crashing hunk of metal like it was nothing. His green martial arts GI was all Zero could make out before the man flashed away. The flaming jet fighter safely thrown on the side. Who was that? Murmured Zero, but he soon got his answer. A handful of such superpowered men seems to have arrived. They were stopping the wanton destruction. And that man, who are you? Tien Shinhan, you must be Nappa. That man was facing the monster of a man who was wreaking their army like it was made of sand. They are the backup. Super soldiers, was the common thought amongst almost everyone watching this scene unfold. The army, the civilians, and the audience watching it on television. Everyone watched with rapt attention. This was Earth's power. This was their hope. Chapter 45, Yamcha's Strength. Nappa fearlessly gazed at the Triclops standing before him, but his long years of service had made him much more prudent than the average Saiyan. So taking his finger to his scouter, Nappa pressed the button. Beep, beep, beep. 100? Aren't you a strong one for this dump of a planet? A smirk of pure taunt formed on Nappa's face, something which Tien didn't bother with. Giving him a blank look, Tien backed away and landed on the spot the Z fighters were gathering in. Nappa also let that happen. He was going to let them group up because that's when tearing them apart is the most fun. Flying to Vegeta, Nappa also landed besides him. Now their two groups were facing each other on the Broken City block. Are you the ones who managed to kill that trash Raditz? Asked Vegeta with a clear disgust-filled undertone in his voice. These guys were all in the 100s. Raditz should have taken care of this in his sleep, that low-class clown. Raditz? No way, we couldn't beat him if we wanted to. Yamcha smiled as he spoke. Tien frowned ever so lightly but didn't interfere. Nappa looked intensely at the lot, then asked menacingly, "Then what are you here for? You can't possibly think that you can stop us, if you can't even beat Raditz. You are all barely around 100. Raditz was 1,200. I am 4,000 and Vegeta here is 18,000. Although Vegeta and Nappa expected them to tremble in fear, or at least start backing away in horror, only the noseless bald one showed a slight flinch. The Triclops looked as plain as ever. The all-white midget also didn't show anything, and the one with the scarred face was smiling widely, with taunt written all over his face. This didn't sit right with the duo. It wasn't that they were angry, it was that they were wary. After all, if someone is so confident, they must have something up their sleeve. Vegeta, they might have something. We should be careful. They did manage to kill Raditz before. Nappa warned Vegeta, who frowned at Nappa and his incompetence. Even afraid of such weaklings, he was surrounded by bouffons. And Nappa meanwhile saw Vegeta's frowning face. He immediately broke out in cold sweat, just when he was going to try and convince Vegeta he was joking around. One of them spoke up. We don't have anything up our sleeve really, it's just us, and I am more than enough to take care of you lot. Yamcha's words didn't bring any fear to the Saiyan duo. Gazing at Yamcha, Nappa mocked. And what do you think you can dash? Guys, let me take this one. I'm all warmed up for a while now. Yamcha's smiling words cut off Nappa, making him frown. The Z fighters looked at Yamcha and gave their respective responses, which basically meant a go-ahead. Just when Vegeta and Nappa were watching these idiots wanting to rush one by one to their deaths, instead of grouping up for a chance at victory. Boom. Ka. Nappa's eyes shrunk, as the man disappeared from his vision, and the very next instant his foot connected with Vegeta's head, catching the prince off guard and smashing him through multiple buildings. Before Nappa's frozen body, Yamcha slowly lowered his leg, while turning towards the massive man with a smile full of cockiness. It's your turn, big guy. Nappa immediately jumped back, his forehead sweating, his muscles bulging with stress, and his scouter beeping to life, as if on response to his stress. Beep, beep, beep. What? 6,900? Impossible. Nappa's eyes shook just before Yamcha's smiling face appeared before his own, and his stomach felt as if it was pelted by an asteroid. Gah! Boom. Spitting blood mixed with saliva, Nappa crashed into an iron bench, his back hitting the metal and bending it like it was made of foam. But that didn't hurt him as much as the damage this guy's kick did. His stomach was churning from the inside. Shit. I am hurt. Vegeta. Trying to climb out of the rubble, Nappa breathed hard. His hand popped out of the rocks and he angrily climbed up. You. Expecting an immediate attack, Nappa was first surprised when it didn't come, then he was pissed when instead of that, he found the man looking at him with a smirk, as if waiting for him to get up before he will start beating him down again. This hurt Nappa's Saiyan pride. He was not happy being looked down on. You bastard, growled Nappa. His body slowly straightened himself on top of the rubble, his stomach pain being left behind by him with sheer Saiyan tenacity. But before either Nappa or Yamcha could continue, an enormous energy blast shook their surroundings, and it was coming from the buildings Vegeta had crashed in. A massive hemisphere of energy covered the area. This dome of destruction took with it the lives of the people and the surrounding environment. Oh crap. Yamcha was taken aback. He didn't think this Vegeta guy was so crazy that he would blast his way out of the buildings. And I aimed for an empty area too. What are those guys doing here anyway? Why aren't they running away? This is not a tournament. Pursing his lips, Yamcha tried to think of ways to remedy the situation. He'll try and take this fight to a more deserted place. But before Yamcha could do anything at all, the dust cleared enough for him to see, and he flinched at what he saw. Damn you! Vegeta was bent down and looking at him with more fury than he had ever faced before. Although not afraid, he was also not a fan of the bloodshot eyes of this guy. Vegeta clenched his teeth, his body straightened. He turned towards Nappa and spoke with rage bubbling from within him. Nappa! Growled Vegeta, which caused Nappa to understand Vegeta was completely pissed. No more playing games, kill them all, then I will take the Dragon Balls and destroy this planet. Nodding his head, Nappa shook slightly. He knew he was thoroughly outmatched by that man, and if all these behind him had similar abilities to increase their power levels, then there was zero chance he would be able to handle even a single one of these guys. Generally, him and Raditz handled situations like this. Guess I gotta transform. Looking at all the Z fighters, Nappa flew upwards and looked down at them. Then with a smirk, he looked up, but soon his smile faltered. Yamcha, seeing that, also smiled and said with a laugh, "Looking for the moon? Sorry, pal. Piccolo just blew it up recently. Tough luck?" Yamcha was sure he had this in the bag, and Tien clicked his tongue at that. Yamcha was wasting time getting cocky. Don't waste time. Finish it quickly. Looking back after hearing Tien's voice, Yamcha waved his hand. Hey, I got this, relax. As Yamcha completely disregarded Nappa, Nappa's veins popped up. His body was crackling with an electric aura. If these guys think a lack of moon would stop him, they were sorely mistaken. So wordlessly, before the waiting Yamcha, Nappa created an artificial moon, which Yamcha took as a generic ki blast. Just when he was ready to deflect the blast, Nappa smirked and threw the thing up in the air, where it stayed put. What is that? Is that Dash? Gruel. Looking at the transforming Nappa, who was still flying in the sky, but now the size of a building, Yamcha began sweating. Crap. Didn't expect that, Dash. Boom. Aya. A boot covered feet larger than his body smashed into Yamcha, who felt some of his bones break from the impact. A kick with 40,000 power behind it decimated Yamcha in a single second. His 6,900 didn't stand a chance. As the dust cleared, Yamcha's fallen bloody body lay on the pavement, and the Z fighters boiled immediately. This idiot! Scolded Tien internally. Yamcha did it with his overconfidence. Now they have to face this monster, and they were one man down. At least he wasn't dead. Krillin, finding that, ran towards Yamcha with his senzu beans, and Tien decided to stand before the Oozaru, who was about to fire off a mouth blast at them all. This is bad. I got to cut that tail somehow, thought Tien as he took the stance of Tri-Beam, because it was the only thing which could scratch this monstrosity, and he had to do something before they could catch the Saiyan by surprise. He only hoped Krillin can get Yamcha back in the game quickly, because he and Kaiatsu won't be able to hold off Nappa for long. Chapter 46. Crushed. H.A. A concentrated three-sided beam washed over the giant Oozaru, painting the sky yellow with its glare. But that didn't seem to be enough for Tien. Another blast of the Tri-Beam washed over the place Nappa was, even before the dust cleared from the previous wave. But Tien didn't look happy in the least. This was draining his vital energy, and he had only one more shot left. But it didn't work at all. TCH, what a monster. His energy didn't weaken in the least. Understanding this, Tien decided to stop his Tri-Beam bombardment. He wanted to try and beat Nappa by himself. But clearly that wasn't possible the straightforward way, and he didn't want to go down yet. So more Tri-Beams were out of the question. Which leaves only one way. Yamcha has recovered again. We are back at full capacity. Now all we have to do is cut his tail. Making his plans, Tien gave a simple nod to Kairatsu and the Z fighters, and that was more than enough to convey what he wanted to do. And so, Tien crossed his hands. Multiform. The dust cloak exploded outward almost as soon as Tien performed the multiform technique. Tien timed it perfectly with Oozaru Nappa waving his giant hand to clear the dust. Looking at the completely spotless Nappa smiling a sharp toothy smile at him, Tien finally flinched back ever so slightly. That stung Triclops, huh? Nappa laughed loudly. He was much more boisterous as an Oozaru and much more bloodthirsty. Grinning with his sharp canines peeking out of his maw, Nappa decided to land on the ground. Thump. The large legs cracked the concrete ever so slightly. The ground went down with the Oozaru's weight. 4 bodies? You really are a Triclops. I thought you are a hybrid and don't have their abilities, but that's clearly not the case. By now Tien had gathered all 4 of his bodies with him. Kairatsu was floating above him, and Krillin was back with a wary Yamcha. This again. Narrowing his eyes at Nappa's comment, Tien decided to speak back. And what made you think I am a hybrid? Scoffing at Tien's poor attempt at distraction, Nappa played along. He was now an Oozaru. He was invincible for these bugs. And he really wanted to see how this Triclops will behave when he gets to know how they killed his home planet. It's obvious. You don't have their attitude, that pretending to be all-seeing look. Laughing mockingly, Nappa spat. All this time acting so mighty, but everyone wept the same when their families were torn limb from limb. A lot of good pretending to be noble did, huh? Clinch! Exclamation point. This word game got to Tien, it really got to him. Although Raditz also told him about his past, it was much more tame compared to what Nappa was telling him. Tien. But Kairatsu's words caused him to snap out of it. He knew what was important. He was simply being led by Nappa. He was better than that. He had people around him, some of whom were his rivals. He won't make a fool of himself before them. Nappa also realized his words didn't hurt Tien as much as he wanted to. But so what? He had his fun. Looks like not all of you are noble. Some also are disloyal snakes. Not even a single tear for your species. How pitiful. They must weep, knowing their own blood wanted nothing to do with them. Tien had enough of Nappa's taunts. He took his stance before seriously speaking out loud. Sorry to disappoint you. I never knew them personally. If they were as noble as you speak of them, I am sure they will understand. As for me taking revenge. All four bodies smirked at Nappa and rushed towards his from all directions. I'll be doing that right now. Huh. A synchronized shout from all four Tiens echoed in the air, and multiple Donon rays attacked Nappa from all directions. That won't do anything, Dash. What? Nappa wanted to move out of the way, but he was held in place by an invisible energy field, making his movement slower. Boom. Ugh. All attacks hit Nappa, scorching his armor black. Krillin also rushed forward, shouting to Kairatsu. Good one, Kairatsu. Kairatsu's speciality was telekinesis. That was his best ability, and he applied it perfectly with Tien. Hey, can you keep him occupied, Kairatsu? Yamcha finally decided to follow in again. He was frankly a bit shook. He almost died, but he was no coward. He still knew his limits, of course. He knew if he goes headfirst again he might really die. So he made a cover for himself and his friends. The cover was Kairatsu. Yes, I'll stay back. The concentrating Kairatsu promised as sweat poured down his forehead. He was occupied with making chances for Tien, who was currently getting beaten left and right, with Krillin taking a few shots in between. They were tossed around like ragdolls. This is not good. Yamcha also understood that. He had to join in. But what good will rushing in do? He will lose just as fast. Gah! Yamcha flinched a little. One of Tien's body was torn in half by Nappa. It lay on the ground, bloodied and trembling. Tien! Kairatsu's heartfelt scream caused Nappa to squeeze the trapped Krillin, looking at the bald man with a vicious smile. Nappa's giant hands were wrapped around Krillin, breaking his bones like twigs as he slowly squeezed. He was having fun. Crack. Aya! Krillin's screams also echoed throughout the city. Yamcha clenched his teeth. He wanted to go, but he slaughtered. What do I do? Yamcha looked at his trembling hands, then looked at Krillin's bloody mouth, screaming in absolute pain.
No Tien.
Finally, Kairatsu couldn't take any more and rushed to help Tien, who only had one body left, which just got swatted by Nappa. Shit. Yamcha cursed. Enough. He has had enough. He was not a warrior. He was a bandit. He was the desert wolf Yamcha. And if there is one thing you should look out for when you are distracted, it's bandits, not martial artists. Spirit Ball. Taking his stance, Yamcha began concentrating his energy in his palm. A white orb of energy took shape in a few seconds. As soon as it was formed, Yamcha gazed at the monster and turned his eyes towards the sky. Take this. With a shout, Yamcha's spirit ball rushed towards the sky. Its destination? The artificial moon. Chapter 47. Help arrives. Yamcha looked intensely at the artificial moon. All he needed to do was hit it and they will win. A smile formed on Yamcha's face as his finger tilted and the spirit ball shot up. We won dash. Energy ball hit energy ball, and a large sphere of pure white energy formed in the sky. Nappa snapped his head towards the sky. So did the Z-Fighters. But it wasn't the Z-Fighters or Yamcha who were celebrating. It was Nappa. Shit. Cursed Yamcha, as his eye turned towards the spot his attack was blocked from. Vegeta. Sweating profusely, Yamcha backed away. He totally forgot Vegeta, and he paid the price. As soon as his spirit ball was about to hit the artificial moon, Vegeta deflected the thing with his well-timed ki blast. Now he was one option down, and managed to piss off two very strong Saiyans. Giving Yamcha not a second look, Vegeta looked towards Nappa with a frown. Nappa, pay attention to your surroundings. You almost lost the moon just now. Nappa scrunched up his face even as an Oozaru. He was almost tricked, and Vegeta had to take charge. Vegeta would not like this. He never wanted to do anything which he considered low grunt work. Sorry, Vegeta. I'll take care of them immediately. Vegeta snorted. He was getting more and more tired of Nappa. He had already decided. As long as he gets his immortality, he will kill him. He doesn't need losers like Raditz and Nappa to do what he wanted. He was more than enough to kill Frieza himself. For he was the prince, an elite Saiyan. No lower-class warrior can be better than him. ever. Nappa didn't know that he was sentenced to death by Vegeta by now, and still dutifully continued to do his job. Sorry fellas, playtime's over. Looking at the crushed Krillin in his hands, Nappa smirked and took a throwing stance. His aim was Yamcha, who had his eyes widen, and that was the extent of time he got before Krillin came flying towards him. Credit where it's due, Yamcha managed to catch Krillin in his chest, even if the force sent both of them flying back. And now for the final touches. Opening his maw, a mouth blast formed inside with a red glow, signifying the surge of energy growing within. Grara! When Yamcha managed to open his eyes and stabilize the panting Krillin, both their visions were painted red. Looking in front, the color drained from the duo's faces. All they could see was a red beam of energy coming straight for them. They didn't have enough time to get out of the way. From sheer instinct, Yamcha tried to protect both using his guard. But both knew they weren't gonna make it. The beaten-down Kairatsu and the single-conscious Tien tried their best to move, but they couldn't. This was it. Their death was here. Swish. Bam. But a sudden green flicker rushed before Krillin and Yamcha, and the same green legs kicked the incoming blast. Deflecting it with some effort, the green figure took his leg back, his white cloak fluttered, and he touched down. Piccolo. Krillin's voice broke the silence, and the Z fighters finally breathed a sigh of relief. Soon they found another key signature rush towards them. Mr. Piccolo. Turning towards the small figure rushing towards the battlefield, Krillin once again exclaimed, Gohan. Oh man. Krillin knew stuff just got a lot more complicated, not only because Piccolo was untrustworthy, but because Gohan was here. And Gohan was a Saiyan with a Saiyan tail, and there is a moon right there. If by any chance Gohan transforms too, they were dead. Yamcha sends a bean. It's in the back, whispered Krillin. He had to get back in full strength, or they risked dying from friendly fire. Nappa and Vegeta also gazed at the new arrivals with interest, specifically at Gohan. A Saiyan child? Is he Kakarote's? And what's this? A Namekian is here as well. This planet sure has many species despite being so weak. Nappa grumbled, although he was quite mad at his inability to kill the two guys yet again. But frankly, he was a tiny bit happy seeing a Saiyan child once again. It reminded him of the old days, when Planet Vegeta was still around. Back then so many Saiyan kids were trained by him, but it's been years since he saw one. All would be happy, if not for one fact. Looking at Gohan, Nappa growled, trying to intimidate him, and see what he was made of. You brat. But Nappa was very disappointed. This Saiyan brat? He was such a coward. What a shitty attitude. That is no way for a Saiyan to behave. Nappa was not happy at all. He will try and push the kid. He will try and teach him to unearth his Saiyan instincts. But if this trembling fool continued being such a mess, there is no need for such a half-breed to exist. He will only make the Saiyan name worse. Nappa decided he will play the enemy to the kid. Everyone else was free game. But unless the kid refused to learn, Nappa will try and make him learn. And what better way than to kill these trash to make this little guy angry? Nappa was an old trainer. He was well aware Saiyans like this kid unearthed their potential only in extreme anger. Usually cowards like this kid were the ones to get killed first, but Nappa will make an exception this time. Unless he did that, this kid won't survive a single second. Is everyone here? Anyone else remaining? Good. Now all of you can die. Boom. Piccolo's eyes shrunk. He quickly shifted his body, but his left side was caught by the Oozaru's tail, tearing him apart. Gag. Mr. Piccolo? Unlike Canon, right now Piccolo was one of the weakest ones here. He was the only who trained alone and didn't have the time chamber to back him up. He was stuck at 3,500, his full power in Canon timeline. So while that was nothing to scoff at, he was absolutely trash compared to 40,000. No. Mr. Piccolo. Go Gohan. Get away. And he was suffering for that, as he was now covered in green blood, missing his left side, and Nappa was coming for the trembling Gohan. Chapter 48. Raditz arrives. Just when the Z fighters were getting massacred and Gohan was getting a beatdown of his life, few meters away from the battlefield, a tall shadow was standing with an irritated expression. Satan, the Namekian almost died just now, and Kakarote's son is getting his teeth kicked in. They are hanging by a thread there. If I don't go now, I won't have anything remaining to go to. These guys are about to bite the dust any second. Raditz was pissed off and tapping his foot on the ground. Satan meanwhile was behind him with a headphone and high-tech laptop, giving him a wait hand sign. Satan spoke while maintaining extreme concentration on the stats. Just a little more, the audience needs to understand how big of a threat these guys are. And that's when you'll sweep in to save the day. The hero always arrives last, or else how will they know how strong the villains are? Raditz gave Satan a blank look while in the background Yamcha screamed bloody murder. Satan also recoiled from the sheer pain in that voice and laughed nervously. Oh okay boss, I'll handle it from here. Do you want to have this cape? It's good for entry. Looking at the white cape, Raditz remembered Paragus who wore such a garb, and shook his head. Raditz was more of a Broly guy than Paragus. And he had his own set of fancy clothes right now anyway. No need, Bulma gave me this new armor. Although it's much more noticeable in the battlefield, it's the same design as my previous one. Bulma made a new armor for Raditz based on his previous Broly-style armor. It was the exact same design, but with Dragon Ball Super Vegeta's color scheme, the one Bulma had gifted him, which he seems to have ditched just as fast. The white, yellow, and gray and color combination, a very vibrant and royal look. Seems like these are Bulma's favorite colors: gray tights, white armor with yellow highlights, and lastly this yellow artificial fur. I'll rock this from now on. New. Mr. Piccolo. Shaha. Kid. Looks like his head isn't in the right place. Turning his head towards Piccolo's now snapped neck, Raditz twitched his eyebrows. Shit. On the battlefield, Nappa was looking down at the dead Namekian and the crying Gohan. He didn't manage to make Gohan mad. The boy was far too much of a crybaby who raised such a scion. Shame on them. And by now Nappa had frankly run out of patience. This boy was a weakling. He wasn't worth the time. Looking at the broken bodies of the Z fighters, Nappa scoffed. I suppose it's time to say goodbye, fellas. So beep, beep, beep. Both Nappa and Vegeta's scouter began ringing. It was showing a sizable power level was approaching them from above. Looking up, the Saiyan duo gazed at the sky, where a black dot was now visible, obviously the guy their scouters detected. 1,200? Another one? You guys keep coming like cockroaches. I'll just kill him right in the sky. Nappa growled, but the Z fighters were not afraid. They looked like they were about to laugh. And Krillin was indeed laughing, grabbing his broken ribs. Ha, he is here, guys. Huffing and puffing, Yamcha raised his head. His entire body was currently broken, so that was the only thing he could move. But that was enough for him. He turned towards Nappa and Vegeta and said with newfound confidence, Kill him? You don't stand a chance against him. All of us together are no match for him. As if getting a second wind from sensing this key, the Z fighters picked themselves up. All of them were in rough shape. But they were warriors. Fighting the pain was a skill each one of them had. He will kill us both? Nappa looked at the sky with narrowed eyes. His sharp Oozaru eyesight had by now found a striking feature in this descending shadow. A tail? Scion. That's Kakarot? Vegeta said with a frown, something Nappa heard and also agreed to. So Kakarot's your new helper? He's a low-class Scion. He is no match for us. The shakily standing Krillin grinned with one of his eyes closed. That's not Goku. That's Raditz. Nappa's shocked exclamation completed Krillin's words, who seeing Raditz arrive just collapsed on his butt. Looking at the man who slowly floated downwards and stood before them, facing the Scions, Krillin was finally relaxed. If you took even a little longer we would be done for, said Krillin, to which Raditz promptly gave an apologetic expression. Satan held me back. You guys look like sorry sights. Patch yourself up. And Namekian, stop pretending to be dead. Kakarot's child is crying his eyes out. Piccolo's head snapped, his eyes open and looked pissed. He was trying to accumulate energy and catch the Scions off guard. But his act was taken apart. Is he on our side now? How? Thought Piccolo, who immediately regenerated his neck back in place and stood up warily, but Gohan ran towards him and began crying. Ignoring the facade going on behind him, Raditz decided to concentrate his attention back towards his previous partners, and found Vegeta, who was looking utterly pissed. Raditz. You absolute trash. You better have a damn good reason why you are still standing here before me. But greeting Vegeta wasn't the usual look of a low-class warrior. It was the complete arrogance of a pure-blooded Scion. Folding his own hands, Raditz looked at Vegeta with a smirk overflowing with arrogance, to which Vegeta was so surprised that he raised his eyebrows, and then in his disbelief, Raditz ignored him completely and turned towards Nappa. It's been a while, Nappa. I heard. You wanted to revive me. I'll remember the favor. Saying thanks the Scion way, Raditz looked at Nappa with calmness. And Nappa by now was starting to come out of his shock. Raditz was still alive. Raditz, you made it. I knew this dump of a planet can't kill you. While Nappa smirked, Raditz was wondering how he should go about this. Nappa was definitely happy seeing him back, but Vegeta on the other hand. He wants to kill me and Nappa both? Because we are useless as soon as he gets immortality? That's such a Vegeta thing to do. Raditz could sense both of his partner's thoughts. Vegeta was beyond help. He understood that immediately. Maybe Goku might be able to do something, not him, but Nappa. Raditz would try to spare him. There were not many of them left alive. Raditz didn't want to lose anyone if possible. Chapter 49. Throne Wars. It's great that you are here, Raditz, but why didn't you contact us? We thought you died, asked Nappa, but his Oozaru form required Raditz to look up. Why didn't I contact you? Well, Nappa, you left your communication on, and I heard that I wasn't needed anymore. Isn't it Vegeta, the prince of all three Scions? What good is a prince if he can't even keep his only remaining race? Vegeta's intense glare and Nappa's scared shitless expression didn't shake Raditz at all. Looking at Vegeta, Raditz continued. You Vegeta, you are thinking of killing me and Nappa after this, aren't you? Nappa looked very scared. He was cursing Raditz now. Why was he antagonizing Vegeta? Raditz, stop making a fool of yourself. Vegeta, he is just upset that you decided to not revive him immediately.
CE.
Nappa's cheek was cut abruptly from a thin energy beam shooting from Vegeta's hand. And it wouldn't be his cheek if Nappa didn't move out of the way by instinct. When Nappa wanted to ask with disbelief what Vegeta was doing, Vegeta spoke up, with his energy and rage in full throttle. Both of you are absolute disgrace. None of you need to live. Raditz, you are right. I was planning to kill you and Nappa after I have my immortality, but I have decided against it. Clenching his fist, Vegeta fired a purple energy wave towards the unsuspecting Nappa. I think I'll do it now. You both have long outlived your usefulness. Vegeta knew. Nappa Oozaru's eyes went wide as the attack was now upon him. His inherent fear of Vegeta and this unsuspecting attack caught him off guard. So even as an Oozaru, Nappa was about to perish in the hands of Vegeta. Dying at the hands of Vegeta like this. This was not how I thought my Saiyan life would end. Pity. But the instant the purple blast was about to disintegrate his body, Raditz flashed before him, his hands stretched forward. He stopped the attack by swiftly catching the energy wave in his palm. With that, the purple energy beam wasn't able to move even a single inch and only kept blinking in its place. And before Vegeta's and Nappa's shocked gazes, Raditz closed his fist, shrinking the energy ball until, puff, it puffed out of existence. Not looking the least bit winded from taking that attack, Raditz gave Vegeta a disappointed look. What a nasty temper. You always think so greatly of yourself, a king, the best of the best. Even when we were children you were like this. But Vegeta, to me you are no king, not even a good prince, always going on and on about Frieza. But look at you, only capable of showing strength by killing your own kind. Pathetic. Shaking his head at the fuming Vegeta, Raditz sighed. You disappoint me, Vegeta. Hearing Raditz's disrespectful tone, Nappa was afraid. He wasn't able to understand how Raditz got so strong. And now Raditz was denouncing Vegeta's throne, right after taking his attack head-on, even after knowing what that means in Saiyan culture. Raditz, why, you don't stand a chance against him. You can't defeat him, asked Nappa, but he was no longer supporting Vegeta in his speech. Vegeta had lost the rights the moment he tried to kill him. Because Nappa knew, Raditz might not have done such drastic things if he wasn't trying to save him. For you. Nah man, just trying to talk some sense into Vegeta. Doesn't look like it's working though. Damn it Goku, what's taking you so long? I cannot talk this prideful buffoon out of his blind confidence. Seeing that Raditz kept mum at Nappa's question, Vegeta was the one who began speaking, with rage overflowing from his body. You got a Zanaki boost from surviving, didn't you Raditz? And now you think you can take me on? Laughable. Just because you have learnt this power level hiding trick doesn't mean you can confuse me. Our scouters are useless against you. No matter how prideful Vegeta was, he was still an elite. Just like Canon, he quickly put 2 and 2 together and understood Raditz was hiding his strength. Although he was wrong on his strength boost being a pure Zanaki thing, he was right for the most part. Nappa hearing that quickly regained hope. If Raditz can truly match Vegeta, they both might be able to take him down by teaming together. Raditz, quickly look at the power ball. We have to take him now, urged Nappa, who for the first time in his life was going to take a stand against Vegeta for real. But to Nappa's shock, Raditz shook his head. No need, Nappa. Raditz was trying to say no need for the Oozaru. He can take on Vegeta and base just fine. But it came off as something else to Vegeta and Nappa. Wait a second, Raditz said he is disappointed in Vegeta as a prince, that he wasn't worthy. And now he is trying to show that he is stronger than him all on his own. Raditz, you wouldn't. It's impossible. Widening his eyes, the stunned Nappa and frowning Vegeta reached the same conclusion. Hair fluttering, fists clenched, Vegeta began laughing. He laughed loudly for an entire minute, his crazy laughter echoing in the battlefield. Ha 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 ha. Raditz. Looking at Raditz with sheer desire to kill, Vegeta said word by word. You low-class filth, you think you can challenge me, the prince of all Saiyans for the throne, thought Raditz. Then he understood what they were on about. In Saiyan culture, if you wanted to be king you have to prove you were better than the previous king. Both power and ability, this was something obvious given Saiyans being a warrior race, and Raditz knew this from memory as well after coming here. This was why Canon Vegeta was so hell-bent on being better than Goku, because the moment he lost to him, his prince status was in question according to Saiyan tradition. This was the entire reason King Vegeta sent Broly away, because Broly would have been the undoubted king. He was the strongest and the legendary Saiyan of their tribe. Who else was worthy of the title king if not Broly? But that was totally not my intention. I am already the king of Earth. I didn't even think of becoming the prince or king of Saiyans too. But now I can't back away either. That is the biggest disgrace to a Saiyan, to back away after initiating a royal duel. Letting out a breath, Raditz cracked his neck. Looking at Vegeta, who was waiting his answer, Raditz decided to get this done. Maybe losing his status might get the guy to straighten up. Chapter 50, Legend. Vegeta, you have been a worthless ruler for far too long. The Saiyan race is almost extinct. Someone needs to step up. It is high time. Looking at Vegeta's increasingly murderous looks, Raditz finally gave up attempting to talk. You are obviously unable to do your job. Might as well show you how it's done. Shrugging his shoulders, Raditz looked at Nappa and Vegeta with a smile. Weren't you both curious how I always managed to survive even in the desperate situations? Guess what, Vegeta? If you're worthy, you will find out today. Riling up Vegeta with a haughty tone, Raditz raised doubts in everyone's mind. He had an idea that he was going to use. For that, he needed to set some background. In actuality, the old Raditz only survived so many things miraculously because of the Dragonball wish, but no one needs to know that. The new king needs a greater aspect than a lucky Zenkai boost, and I have just the thing in mind. Unless Raditz breaks that super elite confidence of his, Vegeta is going to listen to no one. Even after that, it's debatable, but at least it's worth a shot. Scoffing with a deep frown which showed Vegeta was definitely somewhat curious and wary, he spoke with impatience. Are you done? I have had enough of this. If you aren't going to attack, then I will. Have it your way then. Nappa, you are our decider, and Kakarot's kid. You are the only other Saiyan here. Look closely. This is a battle deciding your king. Taking his stance, Vegeta looked at Raditz. His scouter turned off. He didn't want wrong readings distracting him. Raditz also became serious and took Raditz's original stance. The Z fighters, sensing the atmosphere, decided to back off. Raditz, fight to kill. Saying best of luck in the Saiyan way, Nappa Ozorov canceled the artificial moon. He knew he couldn't help Raditz now, but the least he could do was make sure Vegeta can't transform. Because unlike Vegeta, Raditz can't control his transformation, is what Nappa knew, so he acted accordingly. Something which Vegeta caught on. Looking at Nappa, he snorted. Humph, Nappa. I don't need a moon to kill this clown. You are achieving nothing by doing this, only making a fool of yourself. Nappa decided to speak, now that he had shrunk back to his regular size, his Oozuru having lost the trigger. Vegeta, you. But at the end, he didn't say anything. He saw Vegeta grow up. He was the one who raised him for the majority of his life. Seeing him betraying was a tough pill to swallow. He was a loyal Saiyan, but loyalty begets loyalty, and Vegeta, unlike Raditz, clearly didn't care about loyalty, even to his own kin. Raditz, seeing Nappa's depressed mood, and for Gohan's knowledge, spoke of something he felt should also be said for this occasion. You know, Vegeta, we should have every alive Saiyan present for the King's duel, but 3 are still absent. Kakarot's gone to God knows where, and neither of my kids are here. I would have loved to show them their dad taking the throne from the most incompetent Dash. Enough. Vegeta's incensed yell rang throughout the battlefield. Looking at Raditz with a look that promised pain, Vegeta's fists clenched. I have had enough of this. You even went ahead and had kids on this backwater planet. Guess what, Raditz? After I kill you, I'll go and kill your family too. This will teach you to respect your prince. Boom. Vegeta's sudden punch was grabbed by Raditz, who had his eyes narrowed. Then with a fluid motion, he threw Vegeta to the ground. Boom. Picking him up again, Raditz swung the short prince around in one single pull and banged his back on the hard ground. Boom. Me, prince? Ha, puny prince. Boom. Once again Vegeta landed, this time head first, cracking the pavement. Boom. After hitting the ground again and again, Vegeta finally got his bearings back. He swiftly brought his arms up, aimed at Raditz. With a dangerous amount of energy gathered, Vegeta growled with anger. Perish, you low-class filth. A purple blast of energy covered Raditz as Vegeta fired from below, giving him no chance at dodging. Raditz. Nappa looked worried. This attack was Vegeta's strongest attack besides Gallic Gun, and Raditz took it head-on. Vegeta seems to have taken Raditz's challenge far too seriously. He went almost all out immediately. Haha, what a fool. But Vegeta's mouth was squeezed shut immediately when a hand came out of the dust cloud, pinching Vegeta's mouth close. Then before Vegeta's bloodshot eyes, the hand picked him off the ground like a child, his short stature making him dangle in the air as he kicked his feet hysterically. Vegeta kicked and screamed, but with the hand blocking his mouth, he could only yell inside himself, no matter how angry he was. What a weak attack, said Raditz behind the dust curtain, and then slowly walked out of the thing. How's this possible? He isn't even hurt. Vegeta's hands tried even harder to break free, but Raditz's palm was like Frieza's. He couldn't shake them no matter what. But when he accidentally gazed at Raditz's face, Vegeta was shocked still. Something had changed. What happened to his eyes? What is he? Vegeta thought. And it wasn't only Vegeta who noticed this, it was Nappa and the rest of the Z fighters too. With the cat finally out of the bag, Raditz smirked at the revelation being made public. Haha, Vegeta, you know very well what this is, don't you? It's been the legend for so long after all. With his pupils shaking, Vegeta looked at Raditz desperately, but Raditz confirmed his fears once and for all. I always knew I was different. My power level keeps on rising whenever I am in danger, but it goes back to normal afterwards. That's why I never flaunted my speciality. God knows my king won't protect me from Frieza. Maybe he would even try to silence the legend. Isn't that right, Prince Vegeta? His grip loosening, Vegeta gazed at Raditz's golden armor and eyes, which was giving him a strange royal look. Pushing his spiky hair upwards, Raditz growled. This was how I survived all these years when you left me to die. This is the answer to all your questions. I am the scion of the legend Vegeta. My power knows no equal. Ikari was a scion's biological answer to God form. It in fact gave a boost even better than God form, way bigger than a pure Oozaru ever gives. Raditz could indeed keep getting stronger as he uses more and more of the Oozaru boost in his base, biologically keeping Ki trapped inside just like the God form does. But I simply can't go that far. Whenever I reach too high a power level, I slip and transform back into an Oozaru. But Vegeta doesn't need to know about this weakness whatsoever. Raditz only needed to scare Vegeta to submission. And looking at the now shocked out of his soul Vegeta and stunned Nappa, Raditz achieved what he wanted to do. The Saiyan duo found the legend they always considered a beacon. He was always right besides them. They simply didn't know because of the incompetence of the only prince. Giving a smile to Vegeta, Raditz said calmly, I don't know if I have done it, I don't know if this is all there is to it, but if there was a real legend, it would be nothing more than that. Snap. Holding Raditz's arm with surprising ferocity, Vegeta out of nowhere growled. Then his other hand immediately smashed into Raditz's chest, which didn't shake him one bit, but Vegeta seemed to have gone mad, as with bloodshot eyes his hand in Raditz's chest area began glowing purple. What? Vegeta, what are you doing? Do you want to perish with him? Are you insane? Angrily screaming, Nappa was aghast. What the hell was Vegeta doing?